Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in as it's Friday and Kris Spisak is here. We're going to get into Baba Yaga witchery and all cool things, man. She's a storyteller, so it should be a fun night of entertainment for all of you. And because of that, let's say hello to all of you. We have Race Fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, and Tim Mothman and his goatee sharing the bronze medal tonight. Road Flare, Frankie B, Michael Morris, our resident attorney at large. How are you? Ethanol, Keith McCormick. How are you? Little Timmy James. How you doing, buddy? Eternity Eternal. Mama Catherine. I love you, Mama Catherine. You're the best. You really are. Necessary Dialogue, Deanna Ann. Thank you all for coming on in. Mill WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth, and when you speak about witchcraft and everything, it better be smooth. You don't want any rigidness, because that could get you a spell cast on you. True story. True story. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, how are you? Captain K-Rod, Lee the Bee, Operation Shutdown. Thanks for coming on in. Cosmic Joe is here. Cosmic Joe will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Nikki in Seattle, Adam B, Bob Gray, D Cypher, thank you all for joining us. Luscious Jules, good to see you. Carol Amario, thanks for coming on in. J Truth Seeker, thank you for joining us. Cat's Tongue has returned. Cat's Tongue will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Phineas over on X, thank you for listening in. Little Cam hanging out in the chat room tonight. To warm up for tonight's show, he leg pressed 1,000 pounds 18 times in 3.5 minutes. His legs are jacked for this show. Scrolling on down, we got Cosmic J or Galactic J. We have SJ. We got Fapperoony, Dragonfly, and Algaray over on Twitch working out for this one as well. Did 4,000 jumping jacks in 8 minutes because Baba Yaga, he says, can't do that. No, we're going to find out. Warden Dragon, how are you? As we continue on with our roll call, there's Flat 6. Yes, no tariffs on this show so far. No tariffs. Number 16 in your program, starting at right wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. River Dog, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Tracy Winters, thanks for coming on in. Kimberly Burgess, it was so nice to see you today, my dear. You have no idea what you did for me today. No idea. Big hugs. And thank you again, my dear. And Millennium, my man. And who are we here? Scrolling on down. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. How are you? Jordan Ashley Pettit, looking lovely tonight. So we scroll on down. And next, say hello to Walter Kotchabinsky. Catherine Gay, how are you? And I'm Hardcore over on X. What's happening, my friend? Good to see you. All right, let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to be talking with Kris Spisak literally about witchcraft, psychic connection, all the weird stuff that we absolutely love. She's a storyteller. She's going to break it down for us. And who or what is Baba Yaga? We're going to have some fun with her. She got great hair too, just so you all know. You can't see her on the podcast side, but she got fantastic hair, even though her husband's a Philadelphia Flyers fan. But we can work on that. We truly can. They haven't won a cup since like 1976. So moving on, we're in roll call on our YouTube side right now. B.A. Baracus, how are you, my friend? And who else has joined us here? Scrolling on down. Ryugamin Mikado, welcome to SOR chat. Thank you for joining us. We're caught up there. Remember, the super chat is open. Be like Richard Minnick, because it's a good thing to be. Thank you for the super chat, Richard. It helps us out greatly. And on that note, throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock. Mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our site as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show coming in for you tonight. We're going to learn about Baba Yaga. We're going to learn about witchcraft, psychic ability, so much more. Kris Spisak is our guest tonight on the show, and we're going to have some fun with her momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller is here with another spooky story. We're going to follow that up by Jackie Harmon, Jacques Armon, if you're talking in French, and maybe the extra small Lee Strauss. I hope he joins us. That'll be for the Cryptid Report in just a little bit. But first, we got to get through tonight's guest. And why? Because this guest is going to be great for the next couple of hours. Author Kris Spisak, a graduate of the College of William and Mary and the University of Richmond, fully believes that well-written words and well-told stories have the ability to change the world. She wrote her first 3 books, Get a Grip on Your Grammar. Oh, I love her already. She's a red pen. And the Novel Editing Workbook, even better, she's a red pen times 2. And the Family Story Workbook to help writers of all kinds sharpen their storytelling and empowering their communications. I think I just found my ghostwriter for my book. Her award-winning debut novel, The Baba Yaga Mask, was inspired by her family's experience in the post-World War II Ukrainian diaspora. Oh, she's a Ukrainian too. Her and I are going to get really along now. And she has been called a complex poetic tale by Kirkus Reviews, edu-tainment at its best by the Historical Novel Society. Her 5th book, because 4 weren't enough, Becoming Baba Yaga, Trickster, Feminist, and Witch of the Woods, described as a delicious read by Atlas Obscura and a nuanced work of feminist literary criticism by Foreword Reviews. It's a nonfiction exploration of the complex origins of this Slavic folktale character and her lingering lessons for empowering us all. Kris is an active speaker, literary historian, and now her biggest proclamation being a guest on Spaced Out Radio. We're glad to have her. Kris Spisak, fellow Ukrainian. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Yep. I have a Baba too. She's still alive at 96.
Oh, how wonderful is that? So
Yeah.
then you grow up with Baba Yaga stories.
You know what? I will tell you this. Growing up in a Ukrainian family, even though we were very staunchly Ukrainian and I never learned the traditions.
Mm,
Outside of Easter, we didn't really celebrate. Oh, we used to celebrate when my grandfather was alive. We did celebrate Ukrainian Christmas, which is on the Orthodox Christmas.
right. And 13 courses of fish on Christmas Eve. Absolutely.
Oh, and raw garlic everywhere. Yes. Yes. Raw garlic everywhere. You can't get through a Ukrainian meal without raw garlic being popped. And it's so good. So good. But yeah, it's very cool, when you go back in history. One of the things that, and I don't remember much because my family has never really talked about history. I don't know anything about my grandma's side. My grandfather's side, the only thing I know about that was that at 14 or 15 years old, my grandfather and his best friend hid in a haystack in 1919
Mm,
because the Bolshevik Revolution started, and and the Bolsheviks started slaughtering Ukrainian men
right.
and teenagers because they were of fighting age. And so my great grandfather watched his brother take a bullet.
Ugh.
And then so him and his buddy hid in a haystack right through the night. And at night they made the decision without telling anybody that they were going to run from northern Ukraine and stow away to get to the Crimea. They then stowed away on a boat to France, followed the Ukrainian contingent that was escaping to
Mhm.
England, where they heard that there was a bunch of Ukrainians heading over to Canada, this new place where they were getting free land. And then he stowed away to Halifax, Nova Scotia, him and his buddy, didn't know the language. And back then, for people who don't know, because the Canadian and the English people bringing in the refugees didn't understand the Ukrainian language, they just named them after the town that they were from.
Hmm.
That became your last name because they couldn't understand. So they then stowed away on a train, stopping every so many days because they were hungry. They'd go work on a farm for a couple of days, get some potatoes and enough food until they felt good to not eat for another few days again. And they
Mm.
ended up in just outside of Edmonton, Alberta, where he met my grandmother and a great grandmother in a church. And that's how my family got started.
Oh, that's a good story. Thank you for sharing it.
No problem.
We should all dig into our family stories. I kind of came from the opposite of, I had so many family stories, especially from the Ukrainian side of my family around the dinner table, and no one ever held back any of the horrific details. And especially for my grandparents, it was the survival of World War II in Western Ukraine, where you had this moment in history where you had Soviets coming on one side and Nazi Germany coming in on the other side. And you had these Ukrainian freedom fighters in the middle who just wanted their own independent country. And the story of the Ukrainian underground and what that looked like in 1941. And as a kid, I just heard all of these stories about surviving and being soldiers and family separation and how that looked from all of the different perspectives. And then as a kid, I'm sitting here going to history classes, hearing about World War II, and I was just waiting and waiting and waiting to hear, where's the Ukrainian chapter of this book? And no one ever told it. I waited through middle school, through high school, through college, looking for that Ukrainian version of World War II, and I wasn't finding it anywhere. So I had to write it, right? I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. And that's where my first novel came from, really playing with the history that so many people don't know about Ukrainian identity and folk tales and art. And you mentioned Easter and Ukrainian Easter eggs and dancing and all of that. Everything I've ever done with any of my writing career has just been focused on how language connects us as humanity. And maybe I come to that as a first generation American girl who has a mom whose English wasn't her first language. So we spoke about language all the time. We spoke about stories, and all the stories, whether they were personal family stories or the folk tales that were passed down to us, and how this shaped who we are as people, the words we use, the stories we tell. And everything I've ever written has really been focused around those ideas.
You mentioned Easter eggs. Do you collect Ukrainian Easter eggs?
Oh, I write Ukrainian Easter eggs. I collect Ukrainian Easter eggs. And I always like to point out, you use the verb write, because the word for Ukrainian Easter eggs, the etymology of that word, because you're talking to a complete grammar geek here and language lover, the etymology of the word for Ukrainian Easter eggs comes from the verb to write. You don't paint them. This is not dipping things in dyes and just one color eggs. These are these intricate eggs where every single symbol, every single color is there with meaning behind it. You're making a wish, you are telling a story, you are putting a dream out into the world with every single character that you decide to write on there with wax and fire. And I think that's my favorite Ukrainian tradition, and I do it with my kids too, that you're doing Ukrainian Easter eggs with wax and fire. I mean, how cool is it to do an art project? I mean, my kids were probably like 3-4 years old the first time they started doing art projects with fire. But yes, I do love Ukrainian Easter eggs and all of the storytelling and symbolism hiding in there too.
I have about 100 of them.
Oh,
And some of them are older than my grandmother.
oh, that's great.
I can't tell you which ones are, but I know. And it's funny. We just moved my grandmother a couple months ago into a home finally at 97. She gave my daughter, who's her prized possession, my daughter, she gave my daughter all of her Easter eggs.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, because I asked my daughter, I was talking to her, I said, because she lives down by my grandmother and I'm like 5 hours away. And I'm like, what happened to grandma's Easter eggs? Just that point blank. She goes, I got them. I said, you want them? She goes, yes, I do. I said, they're yours. I said, because I was going to take them, but if you want them, they are yours. So
that's spectacular. Yes, I don't have my grandmother anymore, either of my grandparents, but I still have my grandmother's eggs. And being able to look at the symbols that she wrote on those eggs decades upon decades ago gives you a little bit of glimpse into the mentality of what she had a wish for on that given Easter, what she wanted to say, what dreams she was putting out into the world. And it's like this little glimpse of a diary of a person, of this moment that they're sharing. It's stories are everywhere when you look for them, especially those family stories. I love it.
when did you decide to become a red pen?
When have I not been a red pen? I think the idea of story and language empowerment has been in me because I'm a nitpicky person, for better, for worse. I'm sorry, folks, but I'm a nitpicky person and I hold back. I'm not one of those people who corrects people on social media because I'm just not that person. But if someone wants my help, oh my gosh, just getting to hear the idea that someone has and then elevating that idea so it can be shared for maximum impact. I mean, this is the magic of human connection. This is how we bring our manifestos into the world. This is how we make our dreams come true, whether your professional dreams or personal dreams or whatever they are. I think I started editing folks maybe in middle school, where people started realizing that not only was I good at the grammar stuff and understanding characters and point of view and storytelling and all of that kind of stuff, but I think people started realizing that I loved it. I mean, I love writing, but I think allowing other creatives and communicators to share their ideas. That's just the magic of all of it. No matter where I am in my world, if I have a moment, I spent a decade as a fiction editor, really focusing in on empowering people's stories. And in that time, I was doing a lot of ghostwriting, that kind of stuff too. I just absolutely adore it. I have had people tell me that I like to bleed red all over a piece of paper, but I bleed with passion and love.
It's funny. I didn't realize how much of a red pen I was until I got on Facebook years ago. And the grammar Nazi came out of me. I am totally that. I am a grammar Nazi. And, it doesn't matter whether it's there, or there, or a comma where a semicolon should go. Yeah,
Because semicolons can exist beyond winky faces, right? People don't understand this.
It's not a winky face. It's a semicolon, people.
I know. Gosh darn it.
Do it. Let's get to it. How did you discover your passion for writing and telling stories? Because everybody can tell a story verbally, but it's very difficult to paint a picture with words. How did you perfect it?
Indeed. Well, I think I've been storytelling for as long as I can remember. I mean, I remember being 9 years old and writing my first mystery novel. It might have been like 10 pages long, but that's okay. It was my first mystery novel. It was about my cat. It was glorious. But I think it kind of honestly goes back to this idea of my grandparents' story being a story that the world didn't know. And growing up, I think 11 months out of the year, I was a typical American kid, and 1 month out of the year, I spent in the summer with my grandparents, and there was people spoke Ukrainian. It was all Ukrainian traditions and all Ukrainian, big Ukrainian community where they were. And then I went back home and I talked to my friends and I talked about all of this Ukrainian life that I led, and people were like, "Wait, Ukrainian? So where's that? You mean Russia?" And I'm just like, "Oh, my grandparents would kill you if you said that." And it was this realization that people don't know certain things. And the best way to share this is via story. And when I could suddenly illuminate, actually, let me tell you a folktale. Look, if I could suddenly illuminate, let me tell you the story of how my grandfather actually escaped a labor camp during World War II with two of his buddies by making friends with the cook and then traveling across the mountains and eating molding soup when they found a deserted army camp, and how they, my grandparents both thought the other one was dead for 5 years, and then they found each other. And I could suddenly start weaving all of these stories and getting people to understand not only Ukraine exists, where it is on a map, but then I could suddenly connect with people care about life struggles. People care about life and death and love and marriage and how generations came to be and how families travel from place to place. And story was my way of explaining who I was and what simmers in my blood. And that was that connection point that started. I started as a poet, and I think you could claim for many people that when you're starting as a writer, you're not actually a writer. People really have an issue with this word writer and claiming and owning that I am a writer. I've been a writer for forever. And I think for anybody listening who's like, "Oh, well, I write, but I'm not a writer," whatever, just own it. If you like putting words down, whether you are putting them down onto your phone or onto your social media or into your diary next to your bedside, if you like putting down words, you are a writer. Own it, please. But I started with poetry and playing with language and playing with all the different ways you could weave a tale, all the ways you could weave a sentence and have the exact same idea spoken and written in countless different ways with different subtleties for different effects. And that just fascinated me. My first published work was a poem, and it was about my Ukrainian heritage. From there, the editorial side took over, my love of red pens. My editorial side really took off also via Facebook years and years ago, where I started just kind of goofing off with, "Okay, guys, there are a lot of mistakes happening here. I'm not going to call anybody out, but just once a week here, we're going to talk, and I'm going to share something that you probably don't know about. Let's talk about the difference between further and farther. These are actually two different words. Let's talk about uninterested versus disinterested. These are actually two different words." And I just started like once a week, just dropping random grammar trivia, language use trivia, semicolon trivia. And it was just like, I was amusing myself, if nobody else, because I just kept seeing these things again and again. And the funny thing is, I started that in, goodness, 2012, maybe on Facebook, just once a week, dropping a little bit. And it was funny. And then all of a sudden it ended up moving over to my website and blog. Fast forward a number of years later, I ended up getting a literary agent and a book deal. Like this rapid fire thing that was just me goofing off. And all of a sudden realized my blog was being used in university classrooms, and I had an online dictionary actually reach out to me to be able to use some of my excerpts from my work. And I was just purely amusing myself. But apparently the world needs to be able to talk about empowering your language in a way that is not yelling at each other, in a way that is not falling asleep. And apparently that was where I was just like, let's do this with some entertainment value and get this right, because it doesn't matter if you never learned it. The time is now to conquer the English language, or whatever you want to say. So that was my entry point into really just embracing my editorial hat and my love of the red pen. And that was my first 3 books went in that direction. Get a Grip on Your Grammar came out in 2017. It sold to HarperCollins India in 2020. So that book has gone all over the place. I'm still doing a lot of work on my website around language use and proper punctuation, grammar, all of that stuff. Next came the Novel Editing Workbook, which is for the storytellers out there, because there are a lot of books about how to write a story, but there are not very many sources about what do you do when you've written one. How do you edit? What do you do? Do you just start on chapter 1, sentence 1, and look for your best uses of commas? No, that's not where you start editing. It's this whole granular process, and it can be a step-by-step. And after working for a decade as a fiction editor, I kind of created my own personal formula, and I was teaching workshops, and I still teach a lot of storytelling workshops and editing workshops at writing conferences and at universities, at corporate workshops. I do a lot of that work, and people didn't have a guide. So I said, you know what, I can do this. So that was my next book, was putting out that guide. In the midst of this, I was working on my first novel, diving into my Ukrainian roots, and diving into my family specifically, and how do I interview my family? How do I make sure I get all these different perspectives? That came out as my 3rd book, which is called the Family Story Workbook, for anybody who's ever wanted to write their family story, but they didn't know how, or you wanted to write your life story, but where do you even begin with that? That's where my 3rd book came in. And it's funny, because if you asked me during any of that decade, what kind of writer was I would tell you I was a fiction writer. But it's my first 3 books were all writing communication storytelling guides in the nonfiction reference space. And then my 4th book came out as my novel, dual timeline fiction, going back and forth between a Ukrainian grandmother who hadn't stepped foot on Ukrainian soil since World War II. And it's the story of, she said that she wanted to see Ukrainian dancing on soil where it made sense before she dies. So she's 90-something years old. She books a flight. She flies to Europe. She steps off that plane and she disappears. And it's the story of her 2 granddaughters, who are kind of on either side of 30 years old. One who is a very meticulous supermom, young mother, and one who is a free spirit. These 2 sisters at odds fly to Eastern Europe to figure out what happened to their grandmother. Is she okay? Did something happen to her? Is she well? Is she injured? Or is she up to something? And this is not a spoiler for the book. This is a grandmother who's obsessed with Baba Yaga folk tales and all the trickery that involves. And that grandmother might just be up to something. So my novel, called The Baba Yaga Mask, is the dual point of view, going back and forth between the grandmother and her life during World War II in 1941 Ukraine, and the story of the 2 granddaughters in roughly the present day, searching for what happened to her and why she disappeared when she stepped off that plane.
Very heartfelt. You can already feel the emotion in it.
It's been so much fun. I mean, I'm one of those people, I have 100 stories in my head, and I just love connecting with other storytellers and creatives, whether it's digging into those family stories or digging into that. You're one of those people who have always wanted to write a book, aren't you? And I think you, Dave, are one of those people.
If I could ever get my fingers to do the talking for me, which I can, I'm not going to lie, I can. But one day a book will come out about me. I know, because I'm writing it. Author Kris Spisak is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to learn so much more about Baba Yaga and everything about the high strangeness of it right after this on the Idea So Far. We're clear. I just have to make sure everything's timed out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Having fun so far?
I am having fun so far. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. Now you got my mind rolling about why I haven't finished my book. Literally, I've been working on it for about 5 years.
Keep going. Keep going. Life is a juggle. Keep going.
Oh, I know. I got to finish it. I do have to finish it.
For someone like you, have you ever used kind of a voice to text type software where you can just talk and say your story and the computer will do the writing?
I want to. I'm just too cheap to pay for the app.
Oh, there are lots of free ones out there these days.
Yeah. Could you send me some?
Yeah. Yeah, my commercial here, I'll do a otter.io is my favorite. And I think it's like 6 hours free per month. I use it as dictation when I'm in the car, writing rough drafts of things.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Beverly Beatty and Matt Geek, the talented and lovely Nicole Sakic. How are you all? Am I missing anybody here? Susan out of the way. There you go. I'm going to try that. Because I was just talking to little Timmy James about this the other night because I really like writing. I do. But it's just finding the time to sit down and type. And then because I don't type enough, my fingers get sore. And then you get frustrated.
Right.
Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Red Edge Savage, welcome to SOR chat. Yeah, don't blame me. Sandra likes her name said 3 times. It's really weird. I don't know why. But she lives on Vancouver Island, so that makes sense. Kurt W75. How are you? I think I'm caught up now. Mike Bothwell. What's happening? All right, that's enough. If you hop into the chat room again, I haven't seen your name, then just tell me. No, I'll say hi back. I'm that guy. Yeah, I'm Otter. I'm gonna look that up. That looks awesome. Otter.io. Oh, they don't even have a website. I could get this name right now, this website, for $150,000. I could use a payment plan. Holy cow. Maybe choke there for $5,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and they do take MasterCard and Visa and American Express. Wow.
No, I think I do so many workshops and presentations, that kind of stuff. Sometimes when I just have something in my head that I want to kind of spit out a rough draft, I just talk straight into an app on my phone. And that way it'll get my exact words and then I'll go clean it up later because, red pen, this is what I do. But getting a rough draft is sometimes helpful.
And then what? You just copy and paste it onto your...
Yeah, so if you speak into your phone, the app will then put it into text for you. And then it's just a text file that you just then bring over to whatever and you can keep working on. I mean, I use it for, sometimes we also have like complicated emails that we need to write and you just need to wrap your head around an email. I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, let me talk this out and then I can get my words right. And then I'll jump over to an email and edit it to shine it to a polish.
I'm adding this.
I'm not a paid spokesperson here. I just love that app.
Oh, that's Owl. I'm going to go to Otter AI right now. I'm going to get this right now. I'm downloading right now. You just excited me.
It's a great way to get you moving on whether creative project or whatever kind of writing project you're working on.
Yeah. See,
sometimes we all need something to move us forward.
What I struggle with is being a radio journalist. I was used to writing in stories for 30 to 40 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So to all of a sudden have to flip and paint that picture, it's tough. Broken Shadow Feather, how are you? good to see you. And Lunar Tina, thanks for coming on in. Flat 6, good to see you. Free Paul Demon. What happened to just Paul Demon? Thank you to Richard and Mel WD40 for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support of SOR. And here we go, everybody. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. In the background, we got Kris Spisak, author extraordinaire. We can come back on and get her here momentarily. All right, we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Kris Spisak is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Kris-Spisak.com is her website where you can get all of her great books. Yep, she's addicted to becoming Baba Yaga. This is what I'm learning from tonight. And she even has a professional wrestling mask called the Baba Yaga Mask book.
Yeah, there's an alternate version there. I like it.
I could totally do that. Totally do that. Okay, let's get right into this. Who or what is Baba Yaga? And I understand the relevance to you, but in character form, what is she all about?
Okay. So Baba Yaga is an Eastern European witch in most modern tellings of her. If you know nothing else about Baba Yaga, you need to know two things. One, she is a witch and she lives deep in the woods in a house, but this is not just like creepy old house in the woods. This is a house in the woods that stands upon chicken legs. So just picture that for a second. This is a creepy old little cottage in the woods that it looks like it's just sitting on the ground, but if someone approaches her cottage that she doesn't want to be there, this house can stretch itself up to a stand on its chicken little claws. Maybe it'll scratch at the dirt underneath and it'll turn itself around so someone approaching her can't find the front door. Now, if a protagonist is coming to her and is really persistent, that house can step itself and run deeper into the woods. Now, I don't know about you, but I've kind of always wanted a house like this. If I don't want to be found sometimes I would love to have a house that could just stand itself up and walk away. I love that fact about her. Okay, so thing number one you need to know about Baba Yaga. She has a house that stands on chicken feet. Thing number two you need to know about Baba Yaga. Okay, so if she is this witch in so many of these folktale characters, and I'll talk more about where she comes from before her existence as a witch in folktales. But the second piece you need to know about modern Baba Yaga as a witch in folktales is that she travels through the air, not on a broom. You think witch, you think broom. That's not Baba Yaga style. Baba Yaga travels in a massive mortar with a pestle as kind of a paddle. So think, what am I talking about? Mortar and pestle. So think about your classic apothecary, this stone little basin where you can grind up medicines. Maybe it's something you would use to muddle herbs. Maybe this is where you're making your really good guacamole and you're putting your avocados in that mortar and pestle. But she has this giant basin that she's in, this giant mortar, and she has a pestle that she kind of uses like a paddle to travel through the air. In some stories, brooms appear, but usually it's just sweeping her tracks behind her as she moves through the air in this mortar and pestle. Now, that just seems weird. If you don't know anything about Baba Yaga, you'll see some really awesome illustrations across hundreds of years of Baba Yaga, this terrifying witch moving through the air in her mortar and pestle. But the one piece that I will leave to you is like a little symbol of what this is talking about. What is a mortar and pestle? So whether we're talking about it as a tool at an apothecary, whether we're talking about it as a tool for a chef, whether we're talking about it, no matter how we are, it's a tool of transformation. You put something in there, you grind it, you really just use brute force to tear whatever it is apart. And then it becomes something new. And that's kind of the metaphor of Baba Yaga. In modern media, she is so often this terror, and she is that in many of her classic stories. But so often she is this horrible force that is a catalyst for bringing a character or bringing someone into a better version of who they could become. So she's so much, in my opinion, more fascinating than this classic early Disney style witch that is no dimensions, that is just very flat, that is just pure evil, and that's all you get. Baba Yaga is complex because she can be a little bit evil. She can be incredibly dark. However, that darkness is a transformative element, and that's where I'll start with her.
The fact that she's a witch and has obviously stranger type of macabre ideas rather than what we see here in North America. Is she somebody who should be feared? Is she like a banshee? Is she like an old hag type of persona?
So this is where it gets kind of fun because Baba Yaga has changed time and time again through the ages. She has a long, long trail of her history. And this is where I'll circle back to my own grandmother. The first times I learned of the story of Baba Yaga was through my grandmother, but my grandmother did not know her as a story. My grandmother understood her as a reality, as someone who lived in the woods, and as someone who would punish those who were not their best selves. So when my grandmother was a little girl and she cut through the woods in Ukraine, taking a shortcut from one place to another, my grandmother was perhaps an imperfect soul. Maybe she made mistakes time to time. She definitely had a fiery streak to her. So I could understand her being a little bit nervous that, you know what, bad choices were made. I'm taking a cut through the forest. I really hope this is not the day that Baba Yaga gets me. And that was a fear in her heart for her entire childhood whenever she went into the woods. So this was a reality that she faced, that Baba Yaga was someone who only the good would survive. And that's fascinating to me. And then when you actually start looking into her folk tales over the centuries, Baba Yaga has a common theme with protagonists who come to see her, whether those protagonists are princes named Ivan, because we're talking about Slavic folktales here. So really, there are a lot of princes named Ivan. It's kind of like Jack in English folktales. Ivan is everywhere in Slavic folktales. Or maybe it's a girl named Vasilisa or Natasha. There's lots of female names. But when somebody comes to her in her tales, if that person approaches her with 4 specific traits, Baba Yaga does have this dark element of transformation where in the stories, Baba Yaga almost makes their wildest dreams come true. She's like this macabre fairy godmother in these certain circumstances. However, if people don't live up to Baba Yaga's standards, she will threaten to eat them for dinner. Now, to be fair, Baba Yaga doesn't ever actually eat anyone completely in any of the stories. So you can say it's a threat and she doesn't ever carry it out, but who knows? But it's interesting because it's always 4 specific things. If Baba Yaga is approached with respect, if Baba Yaga is approached with kindness in the protagonist's heart, if Baba Yaga is approached with utter bravery, and if Baba Yaga is approached and someone shows that they have a really good work ethic, those are the 4 traits again and again that Baba Yaga will make these characters' dreams come true. So yes, this is storytelling, but you can take this in multiple different ways, and we'll talk about her origins later. But if you think about this in a way of, if you were to meet Baba Yaga today, listeners who are with us today, if you were to meet Baba Yaga today, would you pass her test? If you met some stranger who maybe looked unexpected to you, not someone who you would expect to see, and you, whoever that person was, spoke to them with respect, acted with kindness to those around you, to this individual, to the earth, to the gate on her fence, if you showed yourself to be brave, to go after what you wanted, even if you were utterly terrified, and if you showed yourself to be a hard worker, then she would grant your dreams to come true. I mean, this is not Cinderella, make a wish and the fairy godmother will make it happen because, you know, you made a wish under a willow tree. This is, you got to earn it. You got to work for it, and you have to be a good person. I mean, isn't that kind of something worth asking ourselves every day today with how you lived your life today? Would Baba Yaga have eaten you, or would you have passed Baba Yaga's test? It's a really fascinating question to ask yourself.
Well, I mean, considering she threatens cannibalism, that's always a weird one there. So I would be running the other way. I'd be showing
Totally.
feet here, you know.
Totally. Absolutely. So yeah, in a lot of her stories, she does have this, you know what, if you're not a good person, I am going to gobble you up type thing. So she's a fascinating character in that way, that she is a horror story, and she shows up in modern media as this character frequently. I think one of the most popular ones recently where she keeps popping up is the Keanu Reeves movie series, John Wick. John Wick's code name is Baba Yaga. And then in the subtitles, it says Boogeyman. And I think anybody who knows anything about Baba Yaga folktales just like shakes their fist at the subtitles, because Baba Yaga is this like super complex, ambiguous character that sometimes she's good and sometimes she's bad and all of these things. And just to see the one word, Boogeyman, I'm just, that's not it, John Wick. But that's okay. I'm getting slowly over that. But she appears everywhere lately. She's in John Wick. She's in Hellboy comics. She's in DreamWorks' Puss in Boots. She's popping up in literature all over the place these days, really playing with all of her complexities of, you know what, we live in this moment in the world. And I don't know about you, but sometimes you look around at the world and you're just like, what is going on right now? This is scary. This is horrific. This is confusing. I don't know what to do with myself. So it's kind of taking that human reaction to the modern day and approaching it in terms of a folktale, a fairy tale, because she's giving us a moment to say, you know what, the world is messed up sometimes. The world is scary. But you know what, if we are brave enough to be our best selves, to continue to be respectful, to continue to work hard, to continue to be kind, to continue to just be brave through no matter what is going on in the world around us, knowing that, you know what, even in the scary can be moments of transformation. Suddenly you have this ancient folktale character who's like this very weird life coach. Is that too much?
No. But it also, like, sitting here listening to you talk about Baba Yaga and the myth behind her, to me, it sounds like a lot of the European fairy tales, which, you know, when we North Americanized them, they became very happy and filled with Mother Goose books.
All right.
But they had a lot of dark secrets in the original translations in Europe. I mean, Ring Around the Rosie. Look at that one.
Yeah.
That's horrible about the plague.
Right.
You know? I mean, I didn't know. My mom always used to be Hasha, you know, and I'm thinking, it's ashes, Mom. It's ashes. And all the children are falling down because they've been dead for a while.
It's horrific.
You know? But I mean that's what it seems like is just another nightmarish type of child's folklore that has been morphed into something a little bit more pleasant.
It is, and it's fascinating to me because I think people raise their children in different ways. And I think in this moment in a North American history, kids are not necessarily, I guess, through media. Well, who knows how I say this, but things are very sugar coated, and there are a lot of happy endings, and a lot of things always work out in the end in a lot of media. And I guess I wasn't raised that way. I was raised where I was hearing the horrific tales about World War II around the dinner table and fighting for survival and all of this stuff. And that's the stories that I heard. And these dark tales about, you know what, sometimes life is about survival and being your best self in the midst of horror. And sometimes things can be really, really good. And sometimes things can be really, really dark. And life is a balance of, there is the happy, but there's also sometimes fear, and there's sometimes anger, and there's sometimes sadness. And you know what? That's there too. And we need to find our balance of, how do we not just run away from that stuff? How do we realize that's there and it's going to be there for everybody? And you know what? We need to figure out our way of how to handle emotions besides the happy little ever after ending. There are so many complexities of Baba Yaga tales that kind of, you think about children grow up and they hear stories about big bad wolves, and you can hear that because it's a separate story. It's over there. We're not talking about the real scary things. We're talking about the big bad wolves, and we're talking about Jack and the Beanstalk and being brave and confronting the giants and all of this. But those folk tales and fairy tales that kids grow up with give them the first steps of accessing their own bravery, the first steps of accessing their scary things in the world that are not quite explainable. And I think Baba Yaga stories and Slavic folk tales in general do that exponentially, where they're like, you know what, there's some scary out there, but at the end, there can also be potential for a tremendous happy ending if you can get through the hard parts. And I feel like right now in the world, we're just feeling like we're living through a lot of hard parts. And I think people are flocking back to the macabre and to the dark and to the horror stories because it gives them an outlet for their own fears. We might not be children, but we have fears, and being able to access them through old stories is the same way generations upon generations upon generations have gotten through tough times.
Oh, very true. But back then, when these stories first came out, fairy tales, folklore and everything, it was about trying to keep children calm and make sure that they went to bed on time. You know, it was a real threat. You know, today the only equivalent that we really have of that would be Santa Claus. That if you don't go to bed, Santa's not going to stop by. And it freaks every child out. It does. But back then, like I've used the word macabre here a couple of times, and I'm very proud of myself for doing that because I try and bring in new words all the time.
It's a great word.
It is. And nobody knows that there's an R-E on the end of it. Right?
I think I learned it through literature before I learned how to say it. And I think the first time I remember I was like in high school, or I don't know where I was, and I'm like, macabre. You're sitting here trying to figure out, how do you pronounce this word?
Yes. But just the whole aspect of the fact that, you know, these were used as threats to children. That's what it is. They were threats.
In a certain time period. So here's the fun parts. So in different eras, it was absolutely a threat. So in the Stalinist era of Russia, Baba Yaga became this morality tale of like, be a good citizen or else Baba Yaga will get you. And it was very much this threat for the youth, where you had these stories about Baba Yaga had a flock of black geese that would scour the skies and look for the bad children to collect them so she could eat them. And all of these stories kind of originated out of that time period. But then if you unfold her and go back a little bit further, the first time Baba Yaga exists in the written word, in just any written record, is in 1751. I have a connection here because the name of the book she first appeared in is called The Russian Grammar. We both had our first books that were grammar books, so deep roots, Baba Yaga and me. But anyway, the first book she ever appears in, 1751, a book called The Russian Grammar. Now, this is not a book that's literally about grammar as we might think of it today. This is grammar as in grammar school. This is kind of your basic reading, writing, arithmetic type textbook of that era. And in that textbook, there was this table where it's talking about world mythologies. And so it's a study of all of these different world mythologies. And you have Greek mythology and Roman mythology and Norse mythology and Slavic mythology and all of these different things. This is 1751 Russia, so I'm not going to say it was the most diverse collection ever, but it had a decent collection for its time period. of all of these gods and goddesses. And you would have this comparison table of like, okay, king of the gods, and you'd have Jupiter, and you'd have Zeus, and you'd have Odin, and you'd have Perun, and all of these different king of the god type things. And so you had all of these deities. Now, the fascinating thing is the first ever record of Baba Yaga in print is in a list of deities. And not only is she listed among the deities, she is listed on a line where there's not a comparable goddess the world over. Now, if this doesn't change your perspective on this witch, I don't know what does, because suddenly she's not a witch, she's a goddess. And she morphs into this witch form of this version of, you're seeing a lot of different things happening here, from the movement of Christianity to take all of these old religions and equate them with the devil. You're seeing all of these different things at works here. But within about 30 years, Baba Yaga starts showing up not as a goddess, but as a witch in folktales in about 30 years period between 1751 and the 1780s. So yes, she becomes this morality tale, but she has this whole big complex history way before that. And that's where my latest book, Becoming Baba Yaga, is a utter, to me, fascinating trail of breadcrumbs of how did Baba Yaga become Baba Yaga, of this modern media witch to this empowerment figure in folktales, to this morality tale figure in folktales, to this potential goddess. And where did she come from there? And you can start tracing back through multiple Slavic deities to all of these origin stories where she is linked to be this partner as a life enters the world through birth and as a life exits through death. And she's said to have one bony leg, which in a folktale sense sounds really, really creepy. You're imagining this witch with a bony leg. How creepy is that? But it's often said as one bony leg, because one is a normal fleshy leg and one is a bone leg, because she can walk both with the dead and with the living. And if you're looking at this through origin of a goddess who once was there to carry a soul into life and out of it, you're suddenly seeing all of these complexities of, yes, you can make a really ghoulish cartoon out of this character in the present day, but then you have this partner of a soul as it's transporting into life or out of life. Again, you can find the creepy factor here, the macabre, if you will. If you're thinking about a partner with death, that sounds really creepy. But then you also see her as this figure who honors this transition through this, all of the craziness of the world, and the scary and the joy and the fear and the sadness and the hope. And all of a sudden, this character becomes so much more complex.
I love it. We got about 1 minute to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Author Kris Spisak is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Why do you think there was a toning down from the dark side of Baba Yaga to where we see it today?
I think it's less of a toning down, more of a lack of understanding of complexity. And so many other folktale witches are so simple. So why don't we just put Baba Yaga into that bucket too? She's so not that bucket. She's a fascinating, complex character historically, with so many fascinating tidbits. I'll tell you about Catherine the Great's relation with Baba Yaga later, but she's incredibly complex, and it's so easy for us to put things into a nice, neat bucket. And I think she keeps falling into that little mold, but I think we can do better.
Oh, I think we can too. I totally think we can too. But I have so many questions about this. I'm absolutely enthralled right now. Absolutely enthralled because, like I said, I'm equating this in my brain as, the time I learned early in this show about the absolute horror stories about children's, nursery rhymes and everything about that. And that's how I'm equating this right now in my brain in the translation of what you're saying. And you're doing a great job painting a picture. Author Kris Spisak is our guest. That's Kris with a K, Spisak.com is her website. You can get all of her books here. We'll bring that. Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. All right. If you have any questions, put them in capital letters. I will get them to Kris when we come back from the break. Kris, we got about 6 minutes here, about 5.5 minutes. I'm just going to put you in the green room. We got to going to take a quick break here. Okay.
Sounds good.
Be right back. I don't need to mute you. I just need to go like that. Be right back. All right. We are back. Got 90 seconds. Let's bring Kris back in. Kris, you're wonderful.
Thank you. Likewise.
Storyteller. Thank you. Very eloquent. Another word I don't use very well.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Eloquent. My favorite word is plethora.
Oh, that's a good favorite word.
Yeah.
My favorite word is lovely, because you can't say the word lovely without smiling.
I fell in love with the word plethora because I had never heard of it before, and then they used it on the Three Amigos. It's stuck with me ever since.
Good connection.
Mm-hmm. Stargazer, how you doing? Gamer Quest, nice to see you. Who else has joined us here? Gemma Jackson, thanks for coming on in. And we're caught up there. Bobbert, good to see you. Thank you tonight to Mel WD40 and Richard for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. And if you're new here, do me a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'd greatly appreciate it, as we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. We're going to get going in about 15 seconds. A reminder to all of you, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and go get some, because it's kind of cool. Here we go. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Good to have you with us as we are talking about Baba Yaga and the legend behind it. Kris Spisak will join us here momentarily. But before we do that, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hadaharia. Hadaharia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the clan sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. We have author Kris Spisak as our guest tonight. The legend of Baba Yaga is the topic. Now, you might be like me, equate it to like old fairy tales, but the true meaning of them, not the ones we got in the Mother Goose books, and we're learning all about it tonight. Kris, thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, tell everybody where they can find your books.
You can find my books anywhere books are sold, but come visit me online. If you come to KrisSpisak.com, it's KrisSpisak.com. You can find all of my books, whether you are someone who loves grammar, hates grammar, and wants to do better, wants to be a storyteller, wants to edit that dream novel you've always wanted to write, or if you want to fall into a story of your own reading pleasure, whether that is fiction or nonfiction. I write all over the place because, you know what? Words are fun.
Words are fun. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word is the word lovely, because you can't say the word lovely without a smile on your face. I mean, try it. Lovely. Like, you can't do it.
It's true.
Yeah.
I just tried that. It's true. Right on. Right on. All right, let's get back to Baba Yaga here. Okay. Was there a psychic connection to Baba Yaga and children?
That's a very fun question. So I think children kind of naturally have like a fear of what's under their bed, or a fear of what's in the darkness, all of that stuff. And I feel like she is a connection to speaking to all of those fears, but also all of those hopes that you can find joy and goodness and all of your dreams coming true if you're willing to be brave. Think about like when you were a kid and you were really, really convinced when you were laying in the covers and your foot was sticking out of the covers, that if your foot was under that blanket, you were totally safe. But if your foot was out of the blankets, was this just me? That, oh my gosh, that was like a very vulnerable limb. I think Baba Yaga kind of speaks to that. Just like there's a level of security if we know what's out there, and if we know how to confront her, how to answer her. So it goes back to these questions of, are you good? like, are you kind to those around you? Are you respectful to those around you? Are you a hard worker? And are you clever? Are you smart? Are you brave? Like, if you can pass these tests, it's like this cheat sheet for kids to be able to be like, okay, but I'll be all right. I'll be able, the monster under the bed won't eat me. Baba Yaga out in the woods won't get me if I can just do these couple things. And I think it's true for even us as adults. Folk tales, fairy tales, any sort of world story that has stuck around for a reason. It hasn't just been this thing that stuck because it was like a fad. Baba Yaga has been around for centuries, if not millennia. I would argue millennia, and in my book I do. And I could give you the evidence for why I think she's been around for such a long time and how she's connected to all of these different stories over time. But the stories that stick around for a time, they have something that's whispering between their lines, that's whispering about the soul of humanity and who we have been, who we are, and who we will become if we dare to listen. So yes, there's deep connections to the world and all of the souls within it in all of her tales.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So would she send, allegedly, like psychic messages to children to smarten up? Would there be children saying, I just heard Baba Yaga's voice in my closet, or I heard her under my bed? You know, because children's imaginations, they get affected by this.
Oh, absolutely.
They do.
Absolutely. Well, it was always kind of the threat that she could be anywhere in the darkness, that often, of course, she was in the woods. I did mention that in some of the versions of her tale, she has these black geese that fly and always just like have their eyes out. And speaking of stories, when you learn and study more about them, and then all of a sudden you feel like you understand something deeper about your own personal soul, I have an absolute fear of geese. I do not know what is wrong with me. I don't know if it's like I'm equating them with dinosaurs and Jurassic Park in my head, but I have an absolute fear of geese. Like if I'm walking down a path and there's geese by a pond nearby, I swear they sense my fear and they will rush me and honk at me, and I will. Now you have an image of me like running crazily away with my hands flailing in the air. That may or may not be true. But I am terrified of geese. Now, am I terrified of geese? Because in the storytelling of my blood, Baba Yaga's geese were the ones who were kind of the reporters to Baba Yaga and the ones who would sweep the bad children away. Is that why I'm terrified of geese? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a fascinating little connection once I started going into the studies of all of this. But yeah, Baba Yaga can exist anywhere in the darkness. And I think darkness you can think of literally as in the actual shadowy spaces under the bed, in the closet, in the alleyway, all of that. Or Baba Yaga can exist whenever there is darkness, as in, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel comfortable. Something is scary here. Those are also the moment Baba Yaga exists and haunts children, but also haunts kind of adults in the modern day when things are scary. What happens if we take the lessons out of classic folktales and are willing to take a deep breath and look at what's scaring us? How much better could we be if we're willing to confront, okay, that is horrific. That is terrifying. Let me look it in the eyes though, because only by looking in the eyes can we get through this. There are a lot of classic Baba Yaga stories. When I speak of her, you can speak of Baba Yaga as a force, a spiritual force today. You could speak of Baba Yaga as a story. You could speak of Baba Yaga as an ancient goddess that goes back centuries and centuries. There's so many different ways you can speak about her. In terms of her stories, though, they're, along with this concept of kind of the 4 traits that would allow you to not be eaten by Baba Yaga, there's often a question that she asks again and again. And the question, when someone comes to her and her chicken-legged hut, because remember, she lives in a hut that stands on chicken legs deep in the woods, and the hut can like stand up and scratch at the dirt, and think of like the talons on chicken feet. So weird image. But if she allows you to find her, and the house allows you to find her, then sometimes she will ask this question of, are you here to do deeds? Or are you here to run from them? This is a question that comes up again and again over centuries of her stories. She asks people who come to her, are you here to do deeds, or are you here to run from them? Now you can think about all your classic fairy tales characters and about some people are on a quest for a firebird. Some people are on a quest to get a candle because the last fire went out in their household. People are going to her for so many different reasons, whether it is wisdom, whether it is magical assistance, whether so many different reasons. But asking that question, are you here to do deeds, or are you here to run from them? Again, how can you take this classic world story into your own life and kind of use it as a empowerment tool for the modern day? This is that macabre life coach in action. What if you woke up every single morning in the modern day, you listening to this today? What if you woke up in the morning and said, today, am I going to do deeds, or am I going to run from them? How does that flip your entire perspective on your day? What are the deeds I'm going to do today? It can be big deeds. It can be small deeds. You don't need to conquer the world, but what am I going to do today? Or what is it that I'm running from that, I don't need to run from anymore? You can flip that in both directions. And suddenly when you have these little bits of being a better person, little bits of helping your community, little bits of overcoming your own fears and things that are holding you back, this is that glimmer of the goddesses that she once was.
Has anybody ever found her hut? Or found her hut?
There are lots of different stories about her hut. Okay, so chicken legs, right? So it's raised up off the ground, and there's two major theories about where this come from. So people are exploring deep in the woods of Ukraine, of Russia, of Poland, of Belarus, think about Eastern European deep dark woods. There's two big stories about where this came from. There's one that ancient shamans were always having when they were buried is wrong, when they died, they were put into a coffin, and the coffin was raised on stilts high into the air, deep in the forest, so that this coffin would exist in the plane between the heavens and the earth. So it'd be like lifted up 15, 20 feet into the air. So imagine someone walking through the woods, not knowing anything about this shaman, but seeing this box on stilts where this very special soul, they are told, lives inside. So version number one of where this house on stilts, this Baba Yaga house, came in. In a lot of the stories, the house has no windows. And in a lot of the stories, Baba Yaga is this giantess that her knees are hitting the ceiling, and her feet are stretched into the corners, and her shoulders and head are crooked in a corner on the other side. And all of a sudden you're starting to think she's this holy figure inside of a coffin up on stilts. There are breadcrumbs that make sense there. So that's one version of where the story of the house up on chicken legs might have come from. And if you're deep in the woods and you're lost and you swear you saw it one place, but then you go and you can't find it, well, clearly it must have walked away. It's always fun to see where stories come from. Another version is that, especially in northern climates, think northern Russia, think Siberia, there were actually food storage houses that were put up on stilts, where animals could not get to dried meats and storages of grain and all sorts of things, where a cold climate would keep things and preserve them for a really long time, but it would be up on stilts, so animals couldn't get them. And they would actually, the stilts would be tree trunks that had been burned, because that would really make them not burned down, burned kind of petrified. And they would be on these petrified tree trunks. Well, if you have a tree trunk that is blackened and gnarled and all of this stuff, again, can you imagine this blackened, gnarled stilts that it's on looking a lot like a chicken leg, and someone wandering into the woods and seeing this kind of big box in the air on these gnarled little legs, again, where the chicken hut might be coming from, and just thinking about explorers who would stumble upon these things, and then they tell someone else and they tell someone else. World storytelling is a giant telephone game. That's what's the fun thing about Baba Yaga stories now in Hollywood, or now in literature, or now in anything. It's a giant telephone game. I have my own version in my newest book, Becoming Baba Yaga. I have the deep nonfiction historical examination of who she was next to the nonfiction kind of empowerment of your modern life by understanding world folk tales. But between every single chapter, I have one of the classic Baba Yaga tales. Because if you don't know Baba Yaga, let's give some meat there. Let's find out what they are. But my Baba Yaga stories are based in the ones I know, and many of the classics of the Baba Yaga canon, if you can say that. But it's just one more link in the telephone chain, one more version. My version's different. The person before me was different, which is different. And it goes back and back and back and back. And you're just thinking about these grandmothers who told the tales 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. That was a different version of Baba Yaga. But they're all built upon each other, and they're all true in terms of as true as fiction or belief systems can be.
I have an important question for you on this, because we deal with a lot of woo around here, okay? And we like our woo.
I love the woo.
Me too. Me too. It makes life so much more fun. In your description of this, and I've been listening intently here for now almost 90 minutes, one of the things that has popped into my head is the idea of tulpas. And now, I don't know if you're familiar with what tulpas are, but I should ask, are you familiar with what a tulpa is?
Keep going. I know the word, but I think my mind is going in the wrong place. And keep in mind, on the East Coast here, it's late at night for me, so my mind's not there.
And it's dark out too in wintertime.
I know.
This is a theory we're building here. Let's write this thing. Okay, a tulpa is when a lot of people put energy into something that doesn't exist, and eventually it creates that character. A lot of people believe that Hat Man is a character like that, or other deities, scary deities that have come out. Bloody Mary would be one. Okay, Slender Man is another one. That none of these really existed until creepypasta came out and started making up these stories, and people started believing them. And now people are having sightings because they put the energy into it. So I'm wondering if by chance that, because Baba Yaga has a 250-year history, could she actually be real because of the energy people have put into her?
Absolutely, yes. Her history, as far back as I can trace it, you can find breadcrumbs back about 7,000 years. And yeah, I said that correctly. 7,000 years, 5,000 years before the Common Era are remnants of a female goddess who had in Eastern Europe, who has traits in common with Baba Yaga as we know her today in multiple ways. There's a trail of goddesses, and their names shift and their geography shifts a little bit here and there, but there's a common thread and a common storyline and common physical characteristics between all of them that make you think about this telephone game of story and belief and empowerment, specifically of women. There is a female empowerment that lives between the lines, and I will say so strongly between the lines, in Eastern Europe, and has for a very long time. I mean, this is why we know of Russia as Mother Russia. The mother force, the mother goddess, the earth mother goddess has been very strong in that region for thousands upon thousands of years. Christianity enters any region, actually no, any religion enters a region where another belief system exists, and things clash, and old belief systems are suddenly demonic and other belief systems are suddenly the heathens. I mean, we're going to go back into grammar and etymology here because that's who I am. When you look about the word heathen, The word heathen literally means someone who dwells in the heath. It's someone who lives in the country. There's nothing evil in the word heathen. It literally means someone who dwells in the heath, in the country. And all of a sudden you have this othering of so many different populations and so many different beliefs. There are so many people who believe in the core of some energy out there in the world who uplifts who we can be together when we think about being our best selves, when we think about nurturing our community. And that spirit lives very strongly in who Baba Yaga was and who she has endured to be in the present day. And there are many people who in the present day think about her in more of a spiritual sense than a character sense. And in the idea of her as a spiritual sense, it is this idea of being willing to confront the darkness and finding the energy and strength within. Baba Yaga is a fascinating character because she's also seen as someone in the present day who is not afraid of getting old, who's not afraid of the wisdom that lives inside of wrinkles, the knowledge and strength gained out of the scars on our bodies, whether physical or mental, of what we got through to bring us to who we are today. I like to say she's also a tiny house enthusiast, which is very modern. But there are so many pieces of who she is and who she has been that remains constant. That yes, Hollywood might be obsessed with her as the new fashionable boogeyman that the West is now being introduced to. But at her core, she's a force, and she's a force that I think anybody could tap into, whether you're looking at her as in a spiritual light and a spiritual practice light, or a spiritual conversation, or something you wanted to journal to really every single day. Am I running from things, or am I out to do good things? She's a force in many ways. And whether you're someone who loves stories or someone who wants to examine deeper spirituality over thousands of years, there's something out there for you in Baba Yaga.
We got about 2 minutes to go here before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, author Kris Spisak is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking Baba Yaga here. The fact that she does have this energy, is she mainly still European, or as the settlers moved over to North America, has the legend moved this way west as well?
The legend has moved, but I think it's still very exotic in North America, that I feel like people are starting to know her via like the Hollywood trope of Baba Yaga. She exists in Scooby-Doo episodes. I mean, this she exists in Scooby-Doo episodes. She exists in all sorts of weird ways. But I mean, in so many of those ways, she's just like evil witch. She is a European witch, and that's kind of the end of her story. I think her complexities are only being explored very recently, really within the past decade. I've been seeing so many more complex conversations come out about who she is in pop culture in a larger scale. So it's been fascinating. Interestingly, there was a really big malware attack that was attacking everybody's computers about a couple of years ago that was called the Baba Yaga virus. So that was interesting. There was also a missile in the present day war where Russia has invaded Ukraine. That was called the Baba Yaga missile that was in effect. She pops up everywhere. And she is a reminder of no matter who you are, you got a fight in you, and you can be brave, and you can conquer even through the darkness, which I'm not getting into world politics, but there's a lesson there.
And on that note, we're going to take a break here. At the bottom of the hour, author Kris Spisak is with us. We have her till the top of the hour. We're going to get into some audience questions and more on Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear. You having fun yet?
I am having fun. You're keeping me awake late at night, and it's awesome. I'm awake.
Well, I tend to do that to people.
That's good.
Or the hell out of them, one of the two.
I wasn't worried about that, but it's one of those things. It's quite late here, and this is fun. I love it.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you again for doing this.
Absolutely.
All right, I got a couple of questions. If you want to ask any questions tonight, I will get to them in the next half hour. So make sure you put them in capital letters, please, if you're in one of our chat rooms. That always works well for me because I can see them better. I can. So I'm just going to throw that out there, people. I'm actually mystified by this. And I bet you've never been asked a tulpa question before.
No, this is why I love conversations like this. I never know where it's going to go, and I learn things and I'm reminded of things, and it's great.
There is actually, since you like that kind of stuff, you might want to write this down. There is a really cool experiment that was done in the 1970s in Toronto called the Philip experiment. You could look it up online.
Okay.
So these parapsychologists, along with real scientists and spiritualists, got together and they created a boy or a man named Philip.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave Philip a birth date, a death date, what he did. They gave him a career, what he looked like, and everything. And they did all of this really amazing stuff, creating this person that didn't exist. And then they tried to communicate with him. And eventually they were able to communicate with him. And it got really weird.
How?
Because they put their energy into Philip, like they would talk to him. You know, Philip, are you around? How you doing over there? Do you remember when this happened, Philip? You know, all of this weird stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So this would be like totally right up your alley with this, because it does kind of indirectly tie into what Baba Yaga is.
Absolutely.
And I think it'd be great, fun research for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like my favorite thing in the world. I mean, this is what I do on Instagram, is just chase down threads of, this was fascinating to me today. I'm going to go research this, and I'm going to go research this, and I'm going to tell you about it in this little snippet. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, good one. Thank you. I did write it down.
Yeah. And you can watch, there's videos on YouTube about it. There's articles about it, stories about it, creepypasta about it, a little bit of everything about it. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
The world is a fascinating place, and there's magic out there.
Totally. We got about 2 minutes here.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have two.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I have two black cats who almost always jump on screen at some point or another, just like in the middle of a deep conversation, will just like launch themselves and start yowling into my background. And I am shocked that we have made it through this far without a cat suddenly just yowling, which really hits a good vibe in a Baba Yaga conversation when suddenly a black cat just appears and starts making ruckus.
I got a big fat black cat upstairs.
Nice.
Yeah. It's my daughter's. She found him and 3 other kittens in the middle of the forest.
Oh.
And they were only able to capture the one.
Oh my goodness.
So he came home, and he's really, really skittish, spazzy, and he's always got the spaz eyes going on. And but he's finally starting to warm up to me. So it's kind of cool. It's only been like a couple of years, but he's finally starting to warm up to me.
Oh, that's excellent. My husband calls my cats my gargoyles because they usually perch on either side of my desk when I'm working, and they just like sit there regally, like, like perfect cat posture, and they just sit there. And it's good. They're my gargoyles.
All right, get you to hold on right there. Taft Eric Baker, how you doing? How did I know it was your birthday? Because we're Facebook friends, and it popped up. That's how I knew. I spy on all of you. I do. Thank you to Richard and Mel WD40 for the great super chats tonight. Greatly appreciate the love and support. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out, because we got cool stuff there that you'll actually want to wear in public. Here we go. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Who is Baba Yaga? If you haven't heard the legend, kind of creep you out. It will. Author Kris Spisak is our guest. We'll get to her momentarily. But first, let us remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's Kris Spisak. She's an author. She's a researcher. She's a folklorist. She's a storyteller. She's got great hair. And her website, Kris with a K Spisak.com, where you can find her books or in any major bookstore. Thank you for being here tonight, Kris.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. Let's talk grammar, storytelling, and witches. I mean, what better conversation is there?
Well, if you sprinkled in some aliens and Bigfoot, it would be perfect. Absolutely. But
love it.
When you are looking into this, is this a story that never ends? Like, I know you're writing the story, you're researching it. There's a little bit of imagination that goes into it. But with overall history on this, it is the story that never ends.
Absolutely. When you're going backward in time, I kept finding things. I mean, because this was, such an honor, because my first novel plays with Baba Yaga mythology and Baba Yaga folktales. But then to have the opportunity to dive back into the research and jumping back into nonfiction and figuring out, okay, well, how did Baba Yaga become Baba Yaga? Why is she still existing in modern life and colliding with modernity? And what's the deal? That's kind of was my general question as I was beginning this project. What's the deal with Baba Yaga? And I kept finding myself like, okay, the first time she was in the written record was in 1751. There's the beginning of Baba Yaga. But then you realize her first written record is noted as a goddess. Okay, wait a second. That's fascinating. And then you go backward in time, and then you realize there's this Spanish monk in the earlier than that by about 100 years who talked about this goddess called Baba, I think it's like Baba Yaga or something like that, that it was like 2-letter difference. But it was this goddess that was incredibly similar in how he described him. This is this Spanish monk. He was if the Travel Channel existed in the 1500s, he would have been a host on the Travel Channel. He explored all over the place. He might have made a whole lot of stuff up, but that's okay. But he wrote all the stuff, and he was also recorded about this goddess that fits the Baba Yaga description. Then I'm like, oh, okay, there you go. That's her origin. That's the first known existence of her. But then you start going back and back and back. And all of a sudden in the year 891, now I didn't say 1891, I said 891, you have a different goddess that has all of these parallels to Baba Yaga and both her stories and her physical attributes. And she had a statue that was put up to her. This was a goddess named Mokesh she had a statue that was put up to her in Kiev, very old city, Kiev. And then the same Prince Vladimir, who put up this statue in 891, 8 years later, Prince Vladimir tore down the statue because he had just converted to Christianity, and they talked about how this one goddess was actually, no, she's actually connected with the devil and we shouldn't worship her. And all of a sudden, so this highly revered goddess suddenly turned into this dark creature who lived in the woods that only the heathens believed in. And there are all of these little signals that you go back and back and back, and you just look up, okay, what are her traits, her physical traits, her personality traits, and you go back and back and back. I kept thinking, oh, well, this is clearly the first I'm going to find. But you keep going and going and going, and thousands upon thousands of years of religious history and cultural history and migration history, and language evolvement. The story keeps going. I got as far back as 7,000 years was the earliest I could trace. But you know what? Who knows what will be found next?
All right, let's get to some audience questions here because they are building up. So let us say hello to our first questioner from Kimberly here. Is Baby Yaga the most powerful witch?
Totally. Okay, so I might be biased on this, but in Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga is an incredibly powerful magical being. And there are lots of other magical beings in the Slavic canon of mythology, of different things. But in comparison, Baba Yaga is sometimes paired with, there's another immortal wizard named Koshi the Deathless. And he's kind of the most powerful male figure in this mythology of the equivalent time period as Baba Yaga. But in the stories, when they meet each other, she is almost always, actually, no, I don't even know of any stories where he's more powerful. She is always more powerful, and she is wiser, and he is always has to submit to her. So I'm going to go with the big fat yes, she is the most powerful witch. And I think a lot of even the Grimm stories, when you think about the Grimm brothers of Germany and the folklore they collected, a lot of the witches from their world seems like migration patterns. People traveled, people had goods that were traded. I think a lot of their witches seemed very influenced by Baba Yaga, who was not that far away from them.
All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to Mike, who's a pair of questions. The first one is, have you met or know any high-end wizards?
Oh, I love this question. I will not say wizards, but I will say witches. I know a lot of people who do think of Baba Yaga in a more of a modern day spiritual sense, in terms of connecting with the deep roots of life and the earth and being their best selves and confronting the darkness. And I know many fabulous witches in that space.
Have you ever conducted spells on your own?
I have not. I think Baba Yaga, I kind of connect with that on a spiritual sense, but I have not done any spells of my own.
Okay. I'm just going to quiz you here for a little bit.
Oh, please go for it.
Have you
I'm
ever
ready.
had any type of telekinesis or messages from Baba Yaga?
I think, you know, those moments like right when you wake up and right when you're going to bed, where just like your mind is wandering and you're just thinking all sorts of things. And I think I spent years working on the research of this book. So like I eat, breathe, slept Baba Yaga for a very long time. And I think there is a level of strength and determination and ferocity that I absorbed through the study of Baba Yaga. So it's one of those things with going to bed, waking up, like she was with me and she remains with me. And I think I am all the stronger for it.
Do you think then that maybe the energy that you have picked up by this has brought common ground to both of you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I have been able to be honored to share who she is and has been and will become perhaps. And I have been able to be the voice of that. And there's dignity and respect that I have to approach the telling of Baba Yaga, just like I was a hero or a protagonist approaching her deep in the woods, because things could go badly if I don't do a good job. I don't want to be gobbled up for her next supper. Any historian needs to approach their subject matter with dignity. And I think this particular subject matter, I needed to not only be accurate in my research and my sourcing and thoughtful with how I'm digging this out as comprehensively as possible, but there are deep levels of respect that I needed to do tribute to, because I think I would be more successful if I did. And if I didn't, things would go badly. Any researcher needs to do their best work, but I think Baba Yaga held me to a higher standard, even above that.
Oh, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Let's go to Mike again, who is asking, if you wanted to contact Baba Yaga, how would you? What tools would you need for the ritual or ceremony?
There are a lot of really wonderful people working in this space. And the person, I will message Dave after the fact with some names that are not coming to me right now. But there are a lot of people who are working in this space who do have specific items gathered for this. Is if you were going to contact Baba Yaga, you would want to make sure to have birch wood with you, and I'm not going to have it off the top of my head right now. So that's a fabulous question. That there are a lot of really good resources that can help you with that. But birch, I know, is a common tool or a common thing to have with you, because birch, according to the story, when the ice age froze over the earth and everything went away, the first new plant life that emerged was the spring of birch. So it's known as the plant of birth, the plant of regeneration, the plant of renewal of one's life. And Baba Yaga lives in that space as a folklore character. She lives in this idea of transformation. Remember, she flies around in a massive mortar in the sky. And what is a mortar but a tool for transformation, whether with your pharmacist or in your kitchen, grounding things. This idea of transformation with Baba Yaga is really true through some fierceness and through some difficulty. But that's what the mortar and pestle is. You have to kind of break something up and really press and put a whole lot of pressure on it to create something new. There's a different folklorist named Andreas Johns, and he equates Baba Yaga and her spirits and her stories to the existence of a plow. What is a plow? Is something that you tear apart the earth to enable something new to grow. Baba Yaga lives in that space. She will toss rocks and soil and tear things apart. What do farmers do when they're getting ready for the spring planting? They tear the earth apart, but they do it so new things can thrive and grow. And that's where Baba Yaga exists in that space. She is a terror, but a terror to empower us all. I'm sorry, I don't have an exact answer to your question. Icy, that's the name, Icy Sedgwick. If you go to fabulousfolklore.com, Icy Sedgwick has a lot of details about specifically how to practice with Baba Yaga. I knew I was going to come up with it.
Awesome. All right, let us go over next to Jay Truthseeker here. Are you familiar with the Eastern Santa Claus known as Diad Moroz?
Ooh, I'm not.
Me either.
I want to know. Okay, I'm adding this to my list. Thank you.
Diad
Stay tuned.
Moroz.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry I don't have any commentary on that, but I love learning about stories and myths and realities hiding between the cracks of the whispers.
So the next question that I would have for you, considering that Baba Yaga has a chicken foot hut in the middle of the forest, have there ever been claims of signs of finding paths to her home? Have people ever photographed it? Have, not AI or Photoshop, but have they ever claimed to have photographed it?
Ooh, I haven't seen that many kind of in that style. However, I have seen rock formations with Baba Yaga's face on them that people have claimed that this was kind of Baba Yaga turned to stone, or I have seen deep in the woods kind of evidence of like chicken-footed tracks type thing in the woods. Not necessarily her house, but there are definitely signs of Baba Yaga deep in the woods that people have chased down and tried to figure out, was she here? Why was she here? What was the evil that she was addressing here? Who was coming to seek her here? And if you're into Baba Yaga stories and fiction, there is an amazingly talented international bestseller named Jenna Rose Nethercott, who had a really good novel called Thistlefoot about Baba Yaga, talking about a kind of taking it from a Russian Jewish angle, but in modern America. It's a fascinating book. And I was honored that in my latest book, Becoming Baba Yaga, which was my nonfiction, Jenna Rose actually wrote my foreword for that. So it was fabulous connecting with another Baba Yaga aficionado.
All right. Let's go over to Frost Kitten. Do these spirits show physical form at all?
Absolutely. So Baba Yaga, depending on kind of how you imagine her and what you want from her. In a lot of the kind of modern versions of her, the Hollywood versions, if you will, she's like this old hag type witch where she's scraggly hair and she's bony and thin and kind of that typical old witch version. But when you're really tapping into the connection of her with birth and life, and especially of the earth, also tapping into the feminine energy of her as a mother and her as a protector of families and of communities, people often envision her as a much younger version. I was really excited. I recognize that not everybody here has video, but on the cover of my book, this younger version of her was captured as kind of a maiden, if you will. If you think about the classic strengths, the story of women or the triple goddesses as a maiden mother crone, versions of Baba Yaga exist on all three of those levels, as the maiden, as the mother, and as the crone. In fact, one of the chapters of my book is actually called Feminist Mother Crone, because sometimes you hear the word maiden and you think of like sweet little innocent young thing. But there's strength even in the young, and especially in Baba Yaga in that form. So I have a chapter called Feminist Mother Crone, speaking to exactly that. But and in that, she is strong and young and wild and long-haired and at one with the environment of the natural world.
Love it. Love it. This has been so interesting tonight. So interesting.
I got one more.
Okay.
So sometimes Baba Yaga is a singular person. Sometimes it is the Baba Yagas, plural, where it's a collection of sisters or a collection of daughter, mother, grandmother, or a collection of aunts or something like this. So sometimes you will also capture her as the Baba Yagas, plural, existing in each of those different ages.
Do you look at her as someone who can have a spiritual impact on people's lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, she's
Explain that for me.
so we all find our connection with the souls around us, the world we walk upon, the past and the future in different ways. Sometimes it's something that's simmering in your bloodline, and that's where I came to Baba Yaga, because my Ukrainian roots gave me a different perspective on her much earlier on. But anything that you learn about, if it catches your fancy, if you honor it and are respectful about it and you learn more about it, it can shape your worldview. And it can shape the person that you are and the person that you're ongoing and you are becoming. Something someone said to me the other day struck me, is that in our lives, when we are so busy with so many things that we're doing, we have to remind ourselves that we're not called human doings. We're called human beings. And it's that essence of being where sometimes we need to remind ourselves to pay attention to. And it's in that idea of examining how we are, how we exist, how we can be. And in those moments, an existence of the spirit of, or the story of, the motivation of, the fierceness of Baba Yaga can change your life, your worldview, and the person you can become and the society around you.
I love it. I love it. The fact that she has this whole spiritual side that people are still trying to figure out. Is this a mystery that will ever end, or is it something that we can evolve? Because you've already stated that she is going to be kind of an eternal type creature or person, creature, whatever you want to call it. But does the story just keep evolving into, like, say, maybe 20, 50, 100 years from now, she's going to be something completely different?
She may be something different, but I think the essence keeps returning cycle after cycle. The essence of who she is always there humming underneath the surface. Because even in the morality tale versions of Baba Yaga, like Stalin era Russia, she was a very specific morality tale. And now sometimes in Hollywood, she's a very specific horror movie character. But between all of the cycles, the essence of strength of who she is and empowerment of who she is, that keeps returning again and again. So I think it will continue to. As a fun little tidbit, Catherine the Great of Russia loved Baba Yaga. And in her royal court, she once had a composer create a comedic opera. So comedy opera that was titled Baba Yaga. Now in Catherine the Great's royal court, because Catherine the Great loved Baba Yaga, knew these folktales so well, the comedic opera ended with Baba Yaga on stage by herself singing an aria about how the world has so much hope in it amidst all the horror. So it had a happy ending with Baba Yaga the witch, who may or may not be a goddess, who is singing about the eternal hope that exists amid the darkness. And so that's kind of a fun place to kind of start to and move towards our end of this conversation, is no matter what era you find her in, she is this dichotomy of hope and horror. And in moments of life, like right now, perhaps, depending on what's going on around you or what's going on in the world, there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of horror all around us. And Baba Yaga helps us get through that.
We have just under 90 seconds to go with you tonight. And I am so thankful that we had this opportunity. I'm going to sneak in one more question from Christine here, and then I'm going to get you to tell everybody where you can find your books. She's asking, is Baba Yaga the equal to Hecate? I know I said that wrong.
Hecate.
Or mythological entity?
This goddess of the hearth idea, she definitely occupies a lot in that space. That's a great question. Hecate definitely is this kind of female empowerment, goddess of the hearth and home type character. And Baba Yaga definitely occupies that space. She doesn't only occupy that space. I think that's the thing about her. She occupies so many different spaces that are traditionally held by gods and goddesses alike that she's hard to kind of box singularly right there. But that's definitely a space that for thousands of years, the being that most likely shaped into the Baba Yaga of folktales had a very close connection with Hecate. Good question.
And 20 seconds or less, where can people find your books?
You can find my books at krisspisak.com. You can also go to thebabayagamask.com. Baba Yaga, have we spelled that yet? Baba Yaga, B-A-B-A, Yaga, Y-A-G-A. So if you go to babayagamask.com, which is my novel, or krisspisak.com.
Coming up next, Swamp Dweller. and the Cryptid Report. We'll be right back with hour number 3.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
I had so much fun tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me on.
You enjoy it?
I did. Had a good time.
Different.
It is.
Yeah. Happy place.
It
It's
is
all
a
good.
happy place.
I'll let you get to sleep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Stay in touch with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And feel free to tag me in all the places.
All right. Will do.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Be right back, everybody. All right. Jacques Armon is here. Grantavius, the lip blade. How's the mustache doing, my good man? Give us an update if you don't mind. Or send me a picture. That'd be wonderful. Let's say hi to Jacques Armon. Hey, Jacques.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Mm-hmm. It is good. It is good.
Hanging in there.
Tired today.
Yeah, me too.
What's happening?
Trying to figure out if I'm in focus here. My camera's acting funny. Took a little nap before the show.
You and Lee had a great show. I thought Lee would join us.
Yeah, I called him and he didn't answer the phone.
Oh, damn it, Lee. We'll just shake our fist at him.
Yeah.
I had something weird happen today. I'm
What
going
was
to
it?
say it on the show. I've been saving it for hour 3, so I'm not going to break bread on it right now. But
Okay.
yeah. Thank you to Richard Times 2, Mel WD40 for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support, everybody. Absolutely amazing. And what am I doing? Oh yeah. We do not have ugly swag at our store. It's true. We got 10 seconds, Jack. Swamp Dweller is about 4 minutes, okay? Here we go. Here we go, the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us. As we always love kicking off hour 3 with Swamp Dweller. Then we'll get to Jack Marvin, where she's known around these parts as Jacques Armon, her French name. She likes the French name. Hi to everyone listening in on all of our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Hataharia. Hataharia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. I'm a 32-year-old female who spends much of my free time scuba diving in the Gulf of Mexico. I was on vacation last year when I came upon something I can't explain. To clear up any confusion before we begin, I dive quite a bit. It's something I've been doing for the better part of the last decade. I'm quite experienced, and this wasn't my first time in the Gulf. I've seen a manner of sea creatures while diving, but I've never seen whatever I saw during this dive before or since this dive. So the day was very calm. The waters were the perfect temperature, and all in all, up to this point, the trip had been a relaxing time. I got in my scuba gear and prepped myself prior to diving. While under the water, things were really nice. I remember looking at all the manner of sea life and just enjoying the dive. At about 100 feet down, I noticed a dark spot in the water. I'm not talking oil or anything like that. I'm talking a spot that I initially assumed might be a fish or some kind of thing like that. Before I got closer and realized it was much larger than any fish I had ever come upon or heard of. I was about 120 feet away when I saw this motionless black mass just floating in the water. My first thought maybe it was some debris of some kind. That thought quickly left as I got closer. This thing was the size of a ship and seemed to have an almost round shape. The thing I saw was long and round, almost oval in its form. It had black skin. I'm talking it almost looked like a massive shadow. I reached out to touch this thing out of curiosity, and when I did, these strange holes opened up on its body, and what looked like little eyes appear. I remember freaking out as much as I possibly could. These larger eyes had suddenly appeared to open up as well. I don't know if the other holes were eyes or what they were. Visibility wasn't the best, but the big opening was certainly an eye. It was huge. I remember being paralyzed with fear. I could feel my breathing increasing and my heart rate beginning to spike. I felt this panic just at the sheer size of this creature. It sank into me, and I was terrified. I could feel my breathing increasing and my heart rate beginning to spike once more. I felt a drop in the ocean temperature as the thing seemed to gaze at me. I say seemed, as its pupil seemed to look black. This thing soon shut its eye and the holes, or eyes, or whatever openings were all over its body. Then it just seemed to disappear. I don't think it actually disappeared though. I think it was a camouflage of some sort. I then felt a shift, and this sudden feeling like I was being pulled slowly forward. I freaked out and attempted to swim upward, but felt myself sinking. There was another shift and a brief moment where I stopped being pulled before I was then shot upward until the water settled, and at that point, I knew whatever I had seen had dove too deep for me to see. I calmed myself and took the swim back up slowly. The rest of the trip was fairly relaxed, but I couldn't get this thing out of my mind. I didn't have a camera on me, and even if I did, I'm not sure if it would have helped. I have no idea what this thing could be or what it was. I still remember the terror that gripped me at the time, but I partly feel as though the reason I felt this way was that I was experiencing something unknown to me while diving. I've tried looking up what this might be, or if anyone has experienced anything like it while diving in the Gulf or anywhere out there for that matter. I haven't really found anything to go off of though. So, because of this, I'll leave this question to you all. Have you ever experienced this, or something equally strange while diving?
See, that's why I don't go diving right there, because stuff like that's going to happen. Megalodon's going to come out, or Jaws is going to show up, or them aliens from the abyss are going to come take me. But we thank Swamp Dweller for another great story. If you want more just like that, they're all free. He's got thousands of stories. The only thing he asks in return is head to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. They're all free. Once again, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and you can listen night after night. Let's get to Jackie.
Oh, hello, Jackie.
Jackie Harmon, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. You doing well?
Nice to see you. I'm doing good.
I had something happen to me today that I wanted to share.
Okay.
I had earlier today,
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the most brutal days I have ever had, or I shouldn't say days, mornings that I have ever had in my daytime job.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
terrible. And everything was literally falling apart at the pieces. And it all reflected on my work. And as I'm very open on this show, I suffer from depression and anxiety. And when things fall out of control for me, it is a very, very bad situation for me mentally. And, you start thinking like your confidence, my confidence, which is way up here, well above my head. Well, with this show, it's different than my daytime job because here I have full control
Mhm.
of what I do. Whereas in my daytime job, I don't have full control. And for those of us who suffer from depression and anxiety, it's all about trying to maintain some sort of consistency and control to keep yourself on that high. And I didn't have that today. It was horrible. And mentally, I was very much beating myself up today. Very much beating myself up to the point where, I was bringing tears to my eyes. Like I thought I was just a
Aw.
complete mess, that I didn't know how to do my job. I was terrible at it. All the horrific things that you beat yourself up over when things just aren't going right. And then something happened. Something really, really cool happened. I had what I am going to call divine intervention happen. I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in spirit, my spirit guides, angels, all of that kind of stuff. And it involved one of our listeners. So for people listening in Radio Land who've never watched us on YouTube or any other social media platform, we actually have people show up and chat during the show in a chat room.
Mhm.
And I have a couple of local listeners who tune in. And I'd only ever met them once in person. It was at a ghost tour, and I literally spent 20 seconds with them then. If that, it was a quick, hi, how are you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening, because there was a lot going on. So here I am having this horrible, horrible day. And all of a sudden, one of my employees, because I'm a manager there, shows up and says, hey, I have a client I need you to deal with. And she's in the chat room right now. And my employee brings in the paperwork that I need to go over with this client. And I recognize the name from our paperwork as Kimberly Burgess in our chat room. And she comes into my office and she doesn't even know I work there. Doesn't know I do anything, because I keep my daytime life very private from our
Mhm.
radio audience, just for certain reasons. And she shows up in my office and she's like, oh my God, Dave Scott, how are you? And she started telling me how much she loved the show, she loved what I do, and how it's become a very important part of her life. And her two daughters were there. I believe they were her two daughters that were there as well. And they were talking. I immediately went from having one of the worst days of my professional career into having this divine intervention moment.
Wow.
Somebody who looked at me completely different, and was so happy to see me, because not only myself, but this show has been such a positive place for her to not
Aw.
only enjoy the show, to enjoy the topics that we talk about, but to enjoy the chat room and the people. And she told me all about that today.
Aw, I love that.
She's in the chat room right now,
Aw.
listening in. And I have to tell you, I believe that was a completely divine intervention. And I'm not just saying that because Kimberly is in our chat room on YouTube right now. I'm not saying that. She didn't know where I worked. She didn't know what I did for a daytime job. She didn't know that, or come in there because I was there. Everything had to fall into place.
Yeah.
I was beating the living tar out of myself mentally to the point where I literally, about 45 minutes before Kimberly got there, I had my office door closed and literally my hands covering my face because I was just trying to get control of my mind, my anxiety,
Mhm.
because I was so mad. And then poof, Kimberly shows up and it changed my entire day. Changed
Wow.
my entire day. And then she had the nerve to say to me, "Can I please have a hug? Because I'd love to give you a hug." And I did.
Aw, Kimberly.
So I had to get this out because for a lot of people out there who are listening, we go through a lot, many people go through this on a daily basis, and they don't have that hug. They don't have that person. But this is the importance of people, a community, and the fact that just because you are having a horrid day, a sad day, whatever that day may be that brings you down, it reminded me that there is somebody out there who, when they
Mhm.
see you, talk to you, hear you on the radio, see you on YouTube or whatever, that you are making that person's day. And when I needed that today, when I was at my lowest that I have been since September, which was a horrible time for my depression during September.
Mhm.
When I needed that, God Himself dropped this lovely young woman in my office to remind me that I'm a good person, that I
Mhm.
deserve good things, and that I am making an impact positively in people's lives with what we do here on Spaced Out Radio. And I owe a lot to Kimberly for that. And once again, I'd never really met her before. I live in a
Awesome.
community of 2,500 people, and I'd never met her before. And the fact that it happened where I had the morning from hell, I was stressed out, my heart was racing, like everything that is caused by stress, anxiety, depression, I was going through it, and I was in going from fifth gear to sixth gear, and I was trying to figure out how to get back into first gear.
Wow.
And this happened. I'm a lucky dude, man. And
Mm.
I realized that today, Jack. I realized
Yeah.
that I'm a lucky dude. And Kimberly's listening here, I know, and she's probably telling me to shut the hell up by now.
I doubt that.
But
This is for you, Kimberly. We love you.
but it made me change my perspective. And I will be honest, and you know, I after that happened, I wandered outside of my office, went outside, it's cold out, didn't care, and I actually broke down in tears, but in happy tears. Like, I can't believe that this absolutely happened, that it happened, and that at one of my worst times, there was divine intervention to bring this person into my office to remind me of what I am and what I can be and who I want to be. It was instantaneous. And I actually told her before she left my office, I actually said to her, I said, "This right now," I said, "you have no idea how important this moment is for me." I said something along those lines. Okay. and I told her how I was having an absolutely horrible day. Horrible day. Like I was having such a bad day, I almost walked out of my office that day and today didn't come back.
Aw.
Yeah. I was that upset. And then to have this happen,
Wow.
it was perfect. And
That's
now
amazing.
I went from one of the worst mornings I've ever had in my daytime career to having the best afternoon and evening ever. And
Aw.
I feel completely different. I feel energized. Normally around now during the show, I start feeling tired because I literally work a 9 to 5 job. Then I get a short break, and then I'm in the studio prepping for our great audience around North America and the world. And then this happened. Like if I
Wow.
was into push-ups, I could do push-ups right now.
I'll watch.
More than I could do it. But I want to remind people, and I know I'm eating up your time here. I apologize, Jackie.
No, I love this.
But I want to remind people out there, because there are a lot of people who suffer from depression, anxiety, high stress, just like I do.
Yeah,
I want to
I do
remind
as well.
that there are people out there. You may not even notice it, but whether you believe in God or you're an atheist, whether you believe in spirituality or Buddha or whatever deity you may choose to bring peace to your life,
Mhm.
that at that moment when you need it, if you're struggling to understand why it's happening, why me, I don't have any luck, I don't have this, I don't have that, you're feeling sorry for yourself like I did today, and you forget the good things and the good people around you because you don't know how you're going to get over this moment, that if you just have a little bit of faith
Mhm.
and thankfulness, and you show that on a daily basis, when you need it the most, you will be rewarded. And I got rewarded today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. That's an amazing story. What an amazing day. What an amazing situation.
Mhm.
That's
You
one
know,
of the best stories I've heard in a long time.
it turned out to be an awesome day.
That's
And one of my
awesome.
good friends is very religious. And when I have spiritual questions or happening, I talk to him. And he lives down in Mexico. And I called him up and I said, dude, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. And when I told him what happened, he, from start to finish, he actually started choking up on the phone. He did. He was like, that was special.
Really was.
He goes, that was special. He goes, God, your angels were looking out for you and they knew you needed them bad. And it's true. I did. Right?
Absolutely.
I totally did. And, you know, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for Kimberly, you know, and she doesn't know it yet, but it's like now we got this bond, this friendship bond.
Mhm.
She doesn't know that yet. Well, she does now because I said it. And she is, but it was such a pleasure to meet her.
Aw.
And I hope she takes what I said to her today as genuine and as honest as I can be as a human being, because I needed that today more than she knows. And I am bragging about the type of person I met today in her, because she was just a wonderful, wonderful, warm, happy human being. And I needed that. And thank you, Kimberly, for making my day. Because today, I can say, was the best day ever.
Aw.
Jackie Harmon and the Cryptid Report. I promise we'll talk some cryptids.
is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
You got me crying.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was
That's touching.
It was a powerful moment, man. Powerful moment.
Those are amazing moments in life.
I won't forget this one. This one will stick with me for a long time.
You got a good friend there, Kimberly. Believe me. We're good, close friends. And this guy right here, he's amazing. Now she's got to go to Vegas with us.
I think she buggered off now. She hasn't responded for a while.
Oh, she's like, I'm wiped. Ah, no, I'm tearing up. Those are precious moments in life.
Oh, look at her. Look at her. Anytime you need a hug, just say so. I just try to do a good deed every day.
Oh,
she's a beautiful heart.
Love you, Kimberly. Don't even know you, and I love you.
Mm.
Oh, that's a very special moment you guys had.
Yeah, man. It was freaking awesome.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really a precious moment in life that you'll never forget.
Stargazer, I want some of your jumbo garlic. Love garlic. Mm-hmm. And thank you to the audience, seriously, for listening to that story and giving. I've been reading the comments in the chat room and the love you're giving, Kimberly. Well deserved by her. Well deserved. And it was awesome. Stargazer, I'll take the hot sauce too. I counted. I think I have probably. I got about a dozen bottles of hot sauce in my fridge open right now, maybe more. And I think I've got about another 22 bottles of hot sauce just waiting to be opened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why do you have so much hot sauce?
I'm a hot sauce whore. I really am. I'm a hot
We
sauce
need to
whore.
make that a t-shirt.
How you doing, buddy? Yeah. Lex Diaz, good to see you. I do put hot sauce on my if I'm having an omelet, I put hot sauce on my omelets.
There you go.
Carrie Doyle, welcome to SOR chat. How you doing? Believe it or not, Paramarv, I eat a lot of hot sauce, which I credit to the reason why I don't get sick very often.
You're not the only person that has told me that. I've actually had multiple people in my life who eat a lot of hot sauce that don't get sick say the exact same thing.
I will say this. I became an addict to hot sauce because I always wanted to do hot wings challenges. So that's what kind of got me going. But it wasn't until I had bronchitis in 2019. I had it for 2.5, 3, 4 months, like long 2.5 months. And I actually read online how to cure it properly or naturally. And I ended up reading this article online, and the first one was hot tea with lemon and honey. That, being a radio guy, I know that doesn't work. Mike, I've already gone through Da Bomb. I've got an empty bottle of it in my collection. And so I read number 5 on it was capsicum, which capsicum, when it goes into your system, that's the burn. When it goes into your system, it actually melts the mucus lining in your lungs, which causes you to blow your nose, get phlegmy and all that kind of stuff. But it's between
Yeah.
the mucus lining and the lung lining where bronchitis, pneumonia,
Mhm.
and the one that we're not supposed to talk about are
Yeah.
formed. So I started taking teaspoons morning and night of hot sauce that I
Oh,
knew had
wow.
caffeine in it, and it burned like hell. But I went from suffering bronchitis for months to having it gone in 4.5 days.
Oh, wow.
And little Timmy James, he had the one we're not supposed to talk about. He did that after 3 weeks of having it. He did it, and he had it disappear in 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
capsicum.
can't handle hot sauce. I would die.
Check. Here we go. Here we go, the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I promise we'll get to some monsters, Jackie Harmon. I promise. My name is Dave Scott, your host with the most tinfoil. And we want to remind all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Jackie Harmon is here for the Cryptid Report. And dead of winter, are the monsters still hanging out there, Jackie?
Well, actually, I have an amazing story. I think Tim Mothman is on here right now, and we actually live near this town, near about an hour away from me. I don't know how close it is to where he lives, but he lives pretty close to me as well. It's this little town called Idlewild, and I don't know if he's actually heard of this story, but apparently they have people going missing all the time, and apparently 6 people have gone missing there recently, and they're basically blaming this. I would say cryptid, not cryptid. They're not. It's like the non-cryptid cryptid story. They're not quite sure what to make of this, but a lot of people are assuming that because it's so woodsy out there, that it could possibly be something related to a cryptid creature. And so I'm wondering if maybe it's the mystery cryptid living in Idlewild or Idlewild or exactly how you say that. But it's an hour away from me, and now I'm starting to wonder if maybe I shouldn't make my way out there and try to figure it out for myself and get out in those woods and figure out if anybody's actually like looking for this creature. Does it really exist? What are we talking about? What kind of creature are we talking about here? What kind of cryptid is actually living in this Idlewild? So I
Where
might
is this,
actually put together a little team.
where is this taking place?
Idlewild.
And
I'll
where
have to
is
tell. Okay, it's about an hour away from me. I'm going to tell you how to spell it because I don't want to tell you wrong. It's Idylwild.
And it's in the U.S.?
Tim, let's go. Tim says, Jax, let's do this.
Do we know what state?
It's here. It's about an hour away from us. I don't know how far it is from Tim because I think Tim's probably about maybe 20 minutes, something like that away from me. But apparently they have these mystery situations where people they come to Idlewild hearing about these stories and then they go missing. And that's the main reason why they go there. It's the craziest situation. And now the people who are living there are saying that they believe that it's a cryptid creature. They don't know what it is, but it's an hour away from here. I'm thinking like it's time to get out there and find out what is going on. Talk to these people. Maybe go out and check out for myself, do an investigation out there.
That would be amazing. Amazing. So how many, do we know how many people have gone missing there?
Well, quite a few people have gone missing, but there were, as of right now, they know for a fact that 6 are missing right now that have just recently gone actually out there trying to figure out the mystery of this story. That's the strange part about it is the people are actually going there trying to figure out what's happening and then they go missing. No one knows where they are.
That is so weird.
It is very weird.
Well,
Yeah.
I got one for you, courtesy of Creepy Acres on Facebook. All right. On this date in 1897, Jackie, in Blanco, Calf Creek Township, Arkansas, which us Canadians pronounce Arkansas, the Arkansas Gazette reports that William Miller, a traveling businessman from Little Rock, formed a posse to hunt down a creature that was terrorizing Searcy County. Oh my. The beast killed livestock and pets, but the true horror came when they tracked the monster to its cave and discovered numerous human remains. Speaking of people who go missing. Yep.
Yeah.
There, the men hid and waited in ambush. Soon, a 20-foot-long reptilian horror with tusks and clawed, webbed feet emerged from a nearby lake. A row of spikes ran down its back, and its tail ended in a sort of a blade. The men attacked, killing the beast. However, not before it uprooted several trees and tore a leg from one of the posse members. Miller claimed the body of the creature, dubbed the Gowrow, that's Gowrow, so maybe it's Goro, named after the sound it made, was sent to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. Mysteriously, the remains never arrived, but instead disappeared in transit. Now, there are many people who believe this story and the legend. There are other ones who believe it was a newspaper hoax, believing that this was just made up, to try and scare some people. What's your thoughts on that?
It kind of reminds me of is the legend of Boggy Creek. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, well, that sounds very similar to that situation, which was they actually made a movie about it back in 1972. And from what I understand, they're actually going to make another one about that creature. I just heard about this a couple of days ago. So there might be a part 2 coming out about this.
Oh, man. What do you think? Let's go to the Boggy Creek thing for a minute, because that's an interesting story. Okay, and I get to meet Keith Crabtree, who played the Boggy Creek monster at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference last year. He even bought one of his shirts. I've worn it on the show many a time. And let me tell you, the one thing that I have learned is that there is a big difference in the Sasquatch that live in the bogs, the bayous of Louisiana and all around that area, Texas, Arkansas, compared to the West Coast Sasquatch, which seems very docile and curious. These ones down there, they're smaller. They seem bulkier. They seem very angry. Like they're worse than pissed off house cats.
That's true. It actually is. I know exactly what you're talking about because I actually used to live down in the South and we used to go out looking for, the Rougarou, which is basically the southern Bigfoot, and kind of similar to what they call, this. It's basically a Bigfoot-like cryptid that people say they see around, I think it's called Folk, Arkansas. And that's where this whole story started. I mean, some people actually got so freaked out by it that literally they left their homes and left the area because they said it would come up to their homes and try to get in and attack them. So it's a scary situation. but they do seem angrier.
I got a theory about that, though, of why they seem a little bit more angry. And I think if you are in the bayou with a bunch of hillbillies, not saying all of them are, but hillbillies hiding their moonshine in the bayou, which, trust me, I would love to take a sip of just to say I've tried it. Okay. Then you add in all the creatures there. All the creatures are angry. The snakes are angry. The alligators and the caimans are angry. The wild boars are angry. The all the reptiles are angry. The insects are angry. Like, it's not a happy place. You got alligator gar wanting to feed off of you. It's not a happy place, man. And when you're consistently fighting, whether it's people, whether it's animals or reptiles or whatever it may be, I can see that anger, which keeps the creature going.
It's the humidity.
Oh, the humidity too. I forgot about that.
It's vicious. But it's really true though, because like I live down there near all that area, and the vibe down there is even scary. You get too close into certain areas and you really get that really dark, scary voodoo type vibe. And that stuff is very much alive down there. People don't really think like, oh, all that kind of stuff really exists anymore. Well, down there it does. You still get people who are very much into even drinking blood, and people who claim to be vampires. And I mean, it just gets dark. This history down there is crazy, and it's dark and it's scary. But you've got voodoo, you've got magic, you've got witchery, you've got so many things going on down there. So it's just a different place. It's like a different little world down there. And you're right. It's very much like this very scary, almost like you're on another planet kind of feeling.
Compare that to what we see on the West Coast here, where, yes, there, I believe, are rogue Sasquatch that are very territorial, very suspicious, angry, especially during the hunting season when guns are going off. But for the most part, the West Coast Sasquatch seems to be very docile, curious. If a human is in its area, it's not chasing it out or growling at it. It's literally, either getting the hell out of Dodge, or it is curious, sticking around and hiding and inspecting what's going on. They're also bigger in these areas, whereas the ones down in the bayou area seem to be around that 5.5 to 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Big side, whereas the ones up here in the West Coast tend to be, 7 to 10 feet tall. They seem to be smaller down there as well. So just your overall thoughts on the difference in attitude and why you think that attitude is different.
Well, you have to remember too, their environment of what they have to live with is so different. You've got the West Coast where they're living in the woods, they're doing their own thing. I don't feel like it's quite that volatile life of survival for them. I think they're kind of, king of the jungle, and out in the South, I think it's a little bit different because they're living in an area where a lot of things will kill you. You've got dangerous snakes, you've got alligators, you've got all these dangerous animals, and people out there who don't for 1 second have, even a second thought to shoot at you. And I just think that environment is a harsh environment to live in, to grow in, to eat, to find food. It's much harder. And so I think that that's a big difference in why they are so different. One's so, angry and volatile and scary, and then you've got more docile ones in the West. So, excuse me, I have horrible allergies.
That's okay. The ones in the West seem to have an adaptive curiosity to them. You've experienced it. I've experienced it.
Yeah.
The others have as well. What do you think drives that curiosity?
I think that the fact that, when you get people like us who have that curiosity alone, that, there's a reason why we're there. And I think there is a part of us that really connects with them. And I just actually had a conversation with Mark and Lee on our show tonight, and Mark Turner, and we were talking about this after the show about how it is a possibility that when we walk into their world, we may possibly be actually entering in a different world that's not even our real reality. It could be a different realm, or maybe we're walking into their reality that's no longer our reality. And maybe we're just not, aware of what we're doing or where we are. And I think the fact that we're walking into that, now think about that. If that's true, and we're walking into their reality outside of ours, and they're probably wondering, like, you know, who are these people in our world? How'd they get here? And what is it they want? But then I think they also feel that we have a connection with them. There's something there that we connect with them, and they feel that from us. And I think that's a big part of what needs to be figured out, is like, is that true? Or is it just the fact that they really do just only exist on our normal, you know, playing field of our reality?
Right.
There's so many different things going on there, because they really do have this sense of like paranormal, or the supernatural. And when you enter into that type of world of, like, let's just say ghosts, okay, you do realize you're in two completely different realities, you're in two different realms, even though you can connect. Or maybe we're doing the same thing with UFO and alien. Maybe we're doing the same thing with Bigfoot. I don't know. But it would make a lot of sense, at the fact that things are very strange when we're with them or around them. And strange things are happening that aren't in our normal everyday world. We were
4
talking
minutes.
about that after the show.
4 minutes to go before we have to say goodnight here. And I want to ask you one final question, just in regards to, after your experience on Mount Adams last year,
Mhm.
do you feel that you were more connected to this creature, or have you pulled away now because it was traumatic?
It's funny that you would ask me that tonight, because I had a conversation with Lee this morning, telling him that at first I had such a horrific PTSD kind of situation with it, that I was pulling myself away. But I woke up this morning, actually, and feeling like, I feel like it's time to reconnect. Like, I feel like there was something else more going on that I need to learn about. So I do feel like there's more of a connection now than me pulling away, even though I still now have the thoughts of, like, I might change things. I am starting to feel like I'm getting pulled now towards it.
Is that something that you want, or do you think that they want?
I think the curiosity on both sides is probably something that we might both want. I definitely feel like their curiosity was way more about just being curious about me and Lee and what we had going on, than trying to scare us. Definitely being touched, by it really did leave me in kind of a bad state for a while. I wasn't sure if I would ever go back. But I definitely feel like there's something pulling me back now, and I feel like it's not just me, but I feel like it wants me to come back. There's a connection there now, and I just need to know what it is.
On that final note, I know he's not in our chat room tonight, but I know he's usually listening. We have to wish a great, great happy birthday to one of our Spaced Out Radio team members. And that is a gentleman, you've seen him on the show a couple of times. He comes on, well, more than a couple of times, I should say. He's come on numerous times on Spaced Out Radio, the man with the magic mustache, Terry Hall. Terry Hall is not only a brilliant observer of ufology, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. He is an absolute rock in behind what I do on a daily basis. He is the guy who keeps searching for more radio stations. The dude is tough as nails. Literally just got his finger lopped off because he had a surgery go wrong. So he's like, instead of fixing it, just take the damn thing off. I could never do that. Never do that. But Terry is like my backbone and my strength to this show. And you know what? You guys get to hear the product that's finished. You guys get to see what we accomplish on each and every night. But it's people like Terry behind the scenes who is always rallying the troops, always Mr. Positive, even when he's getting his finger chopped off. Okay. He's still always in good spirit.
Yeah,
And
he's amazing.
He really is. And he's an important part of our team moving forward as we continue to grow Spaced Out Radio and try and get more radio stations for our great show here. And it's all because of Terry's drive and tenacity. And he deserves all the best this birthday year for him.
Yeah.
As he is, I'm not going to say his age, but he had a really good trek around the sun. He's going to go for another one here, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. And
Happy birthday, Terry.
Yeah, and I wish from all of us at Spaced Out Radio for Terry to have just a wonderful birthday and a wonderful, wonderful year coming up that is started now for him. So happy birthday, Terry Hall. We love you, and thanks for making it special. Jackie, thank you for joining us on the Cryptid Report here. Always love it. And we're going to say hello to our good friend, Ron Bumblefoot Paul. Rocky in the background with little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your words up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in and out work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LDAP, Facebook, Streamer, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, #SpacedOutRadio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio, SUR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the blue train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, be never to them too. Good night, everybody. There we go. We're clear. And just like that, another weekend comes aboard.
I have to work all weekend.
Oh, I don't. Actually, I do tomorrow. I got a lot to do this weekend. I expected, thank goodness that there's no football game this weekend, because I would have literally put everything off. Thank goodness Super Bowl's next week.
What are you going to do this weekend?
Oh, well, my son has hockey tomorrow morning. Then I'm going to go to work. And then I have to talk to my accountant. And then I will try to find time to sleep and watch. I'm addicted to Mr. Beast's Beast games on Amazon.
Oh,
And the new season of Shoresy is out, so I'm watching that. And then I'll probably try to make it 3 wins in a row against my son in floor hockey because I beat him
Cute.
tonight. I beat him yesterday in overtime. I beat him tonight in double overtime.
Aw.
Yep. So I got that to do. That's
I'm
important.
watching 2 new shows right now, Severance and Silo. Have you heard of those?
No.
Oh, so good. If anybody's on here listening, Severance and Silo, you gotta watch. So good. Matter of fact, I think it came on tonight, so tomorrow night I'll catch up. Uh-huh. See? Hillbilly. Silo is so good. I'm on season 2. I just started. Wait, I didn't watch season 2 yet. I'm on season 2, part 1. See, Paramarv knows. So I can only watch like so many at one time because like then I forget what I'm watching and I get caught up on something else. And then somebody will go like, "Oh, have you seen this show?" And I'll go, "Oh, hey, hold on a minute. I think I was watching that. I forgot to finish." Oh, I think there's only 2 seasons right now of Silo, right? I'm about to start the first show. Ah, Tim Mothman said Mr. Beast can suck it.
Give me 2
Funny.
seconds.
Has anybody seen Severance? My son got me stuck on Severance and it's so good. Let's see if anybody's seen it. I don't think anybody's seen it. If you guys haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. What's his name? I'm gonna draw a blank. The guy that created it.
I never heard of it.
Who's okay? I'm like totally drawing a blank. Who's the guy in like Meet the Fockers?
Ben Stiller?
Ben Stiller. Yeah, Ben Stiller like directed it. See, Paramar. Severance is good. Now it's still going. See, Ben Stiller. Good job. Yeah, it's De Niro. I don't know about De Niro, but Ben Stiller is like the one I think who did Severance, and it's crazy good. I love it. It's so strange, but it's good, and it's like it keeps you thinking, and you're just like, hold on, wait, hold on, wait, hold on, wait. You're trying to keep up in your mind. You're like, and I'm constantly asking my son, like, what just happened? What just what did they just do? Because it's just it's like constantly like this. They have a they work in this building and then they have an outside life, but they have a chip in their brain where when they go to work, they only know that part of their life. But when they leave the building, they only know that part of their life. So it's really weird. It's like they work for this cult family or something who created this company. It's so weird, but it's so good.
So weird, but so good.
Yeah. Totally
Perfect.
worth it.
Perfect.
Yeah, they have the magic elevator. That's right. Wink. I got you, Paramarv. Oh, apparently people aren't liking Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is a nasty human being. You know, I don't really know that much about Mr. Beast. I do hear weird things, but that's only because I have one teenage and one preteen kid, and they used to be like obsessed with Mr. Beast and all the games and all the stuff. Now, I don't know where everybody else lives, but like I go to the grocery store and there's like a whole Mr. Beast food section. Do you have that too?
I tried one of his chocolate bars today for the first time.
Oh, really?
I liked it.
Yeah, I can't remember all the stuff he has. It's like snacks and chips, and I can't remember all the stuff, but my kids have got him a couple times.
Mm.
I don't really know that much about him. I heard that he's like all the videos he makes are like I guess kind of like not as true as I guess they thought they were or something. I don't know.
I think it was more prior, before he started blowing
Oh.
over the place. So, but either way, he has a few more subscribers than we do.
I think he's got like a billion or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got
He
like
is.
300 and some million subscribers.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I just like a tenth of that. That's it. Just a tenth.
I got 6.6 thousand on my Facebook, and I feel pretty important today.
No.
Not really. I mean, I do, but I don't feel important about it. It's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I just like being me. I should
Mm-hmm.
do some videos at work so you guys can all see where I work at. We just built a brand new shooting range.
At no time have we ever appreciated the child talk. Okay, tighten it up, people. Tighten it up. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm very strict on that bullshit.
It's okay. I didn't see what it was.
Yeah. I have done the deep dive, so that's what I do as a journalist. I always like that. Not trying to be rude, but everybody, you should do the deep dive. Grant Baker can come back anytime he wants to. The door is always open for Grant. He knows that. All he has to do is give me a call. Yeah.
Is he planning on coming to Vegas?
I hope so.
I know, me too.
If not, I hope he sends his mustache.
That boy had a good time in Reno. I was shocked he was able to drive home.
Oh, he sobered up by then.
That's good.
I made very good sure of that.
Full stash optional.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna have such a good time.
God,
In my mind, I've already got like my outfits picked out. I'm looking good. My hair is curled. My makeup's on. My nails are done. I'm tan. Come in wearing my short shorts from like the 70s.
Me too. Yeah, I'm going to be showing off a lot of leg in Vegas.
Woohoo!
A lot. You guys are going to like it.
And we're going to love it.
Oh, yeah. May 1st to 5th. Anybody wants to come, you're invited.
I'll be
Just
there.
Just show up. You're invited. If you're like, oh, I didn't know about this. Yes, you did. You were invited.
Y'all are invited.
Who is going to be there? Well, we're going to be there. This is basically one thing that you have to understand about this Vegas thing, guys, is there is no event.
Nope.
We're just showing up to party. That's it. Okay? We're just showing up to party. And if you want to show up with us and party with us, that's perfect. That's it. It's that perfect. Right? You don't have to come for the full time, even if you want to come for a day, like Grant did last year. Right?
Did he really do that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Sweet Robbie G is going to be there.
Yep.
Yeah. And remember, for every one of our audience members who show up, Rob G is going to give you one red chest hair. One red chest hair for every person who shows up.
Yep.
You can't have the beard hair because I've already asked him to will me the beard hair if anything ever happens to him.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, now he's making shaves his chest.
He's like, nope.
Mm-hmm. Sweet Rob will be here on the weekend. All right. Yep. He will be here actually playing an archive show tomorrow because big birthday bash that he has to go to. He'll be back on Sunday with Reverend Michael Carter. Just an amazing man and guest. And Jackie's still blowing her nose.
I have horrible allergies.
Yeah, you're a picker.
Oh,
you're a picker.
Red my nose is.
Teasing. I'm teasing right now. Thank you tonight to Richard ×2, Mel WD40 for the super chats. Thank you to all of our new subscribers this week. And Jackie, talk to you soon, my dear. The rest of you, we'll see you on Monday when my guest will be Sebastian Martin. We're going to be talking about UFOs, remote viewing, see where else it takes us. It's going to be amazing, I promise you. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.